You ever try boiling soup with a half-dead monster core jammed inside a metal bucket? No? Yeah. Well, welcome to my morning. Our orphanage boiler was basically 3 chunks of rust held together by stubbornness and a prayer, which meant it was my job, every freezing sunrise, to wake up early and keep the place from turning into an ice dungeon. Ray, the heater's moaning again. The matron yelled from upstairs. On it. I called back, grabbing my patch coat and a wrench that had definitely seen better days. I headed to the basement, careful not to trip on the cracked stairs. The boiler was coughing out blue sparks again, like it had indigestion. I gave a good, solid kick. Clang. It whined, sputtered, then settled into a weak hum. Still got it. I muttered, wiping my hands on my pants. Which, let's be real, were already covered in monster oil from yesterday's budget slime cores. Just another day on Blue Planet. See, our world didn't always run on dungeons and stat sheets. But that all changed 20 years ago when the sky cracked open, monsters poured out, and society collectively said, well, guess we're an RPG now. Now, every kid awakens a personal trait on their 16th birthday, some power tied to their soul. Traits define your future. Get a good one, and you're on track to join a major guild, maybe even reach S rank. Get a bad one. Well, you keep fixing boilers and praying for edible soup. I was turning 16 tomorrow, my awakening day. The government runs a big ceremony at the school where you touch a fancy glowing orb. It scans your soul, and ding, you get your trait. Kids dream of flashy powers. Flame fists, teleportation, lightning spears. Me? I'd be happy if mine didn't explode on contact. Don't get your hopes up, the matron, Ms. Tella, said as I came back upstairs. She was in her usual robe and slippers, stirring what I assumed was oatmeal. Or glue. Hard to tell some days. Too late, I said, already dreaming of a life where I can afford 2 meals a day. She gave me a tired look. Just come back in one piece. Our school's training dome looked like someone dropped a glass stadium onto the edge of town. It shimmered with dungeon-forged crystal and mana lines. Fancy stuff for a school that still used wooden desks. Inside, the awakening ceremony was already underway. Each student stepped up, placed their hand on the floating orb, and had their trait announced to thunderous applause. Wind cutter, shadow sprint, frost forge bones. Even the instructor was clapping. Then came my turn. Arkwright Ray. I stepped up to the orb, took a deep breath, touched the surface. Scanning. The orb pulsed, then glitched. Hard. Trait compatibility. Error. Adjusting soul link. Great. I broke it. Then it flared bright white. Trait unlocked. Equipment fusion. Rarity. Unknown. Fusion path. Adaptive. Stat bone point system initialized. The light faded. Everyone stared. What the heck is equipment fusion? Someone muttered. Does he like glue swords together? I stepped away as the whispers started. No applause. No cheers. Just confusion. Perfect. I was ushered into the stat chamber while the next student stepped up. The system crystal lit up and displayed my status. Status: Ray Arkwright. A level 1. Class: Basic Swordsman. Trait: Equipment Fusion. Rarity: STR 6 AGI 7 Vit 6 Int 5 Dex 8 Luck 3. Skill slots 0/3. SBP Stat Bone Point 0. Fusion Lab. Active. Basic stats. Low everything. Even my luck stat looked like it had given up on me. But then I noticed the new tab, Fusion Lab, and the line beneath it. Fuse 2 compatible items to create a new piece of gear. Gain permanent stat bone point bonuses based on rarity and synergy. Wait, permanent stat bonuses? That wasn't normal. Most people had to grind levels and spend skill points. But this, I could fuse garbage together and get stronger. Slowly. Quietly. Even if the weapon broke, the stats stayed. I didn't need to win the lottery. I just needed enough scrap. Back in the gym, kids were showing off their new traits like they'd won the system jackpot. I'm going to get scouted for the Crimson Fawn Guild for sure. My trait is a lineage skill. You know how rare that is. Nobody looked my way. Not even out of pity. Honestly, good. Let them chase their fireworks. I build a bonfire out of garbage. Tomorrow, I was heading to the junkyard. And if this fusion thing worked the way I thought it did, I'd climb to the top one rusted blade at a time. You ever stare at a pile of garbage and feel hope? No, just me? Cool. The city junkyard wasn't exactly the promised land, but with my shiny new trait, equipment fusion, it might as well have been a hidden treasure vault. If treasure came in the form of bent daggers, rusty shield shards, and boots that smelled like betrayal, I stood there, arms crossed, eyeing a crooked iron sword half buried in the dirt. The blade looked like it had been chewed on by a steel-eating termite. All right, let's see what you're made of, I muttered, pulling it free. It creaked. It actually creaked. Half an hour later, I'd collected a bunch of junk. A chipped iron sword, a bent copper kitchen knife, a cracked wooden shield rim, and something that might have once been a gauntlet, or a very angry toaster. I found an alley near the adventurer's market where nobody would look twice at a guy muttering to himself over trash. Perfect test lab. I unsheathed the busted iron sword and held it in one hand, the knife in the other. Both trash tier. But hey, the system didn't say they had to be legendary, just compatible. I activated my trait. Equipment fusion initiated. Items. Iron short sword plus copper knife. Processing synergy. The weapons glowed faint blue. Vibration kicked in, like a mini earthquake in my palms. I stepped back instinctively. Fusion complete. Cracked Fong blade. Tier E. Effect. Serrated edge. Improved lightness. Bonus. +2 STR, +1 AGI, while equipped. SBP gained. +0.7 STR, +0.4 DX, permanently. The fused weapon materialized in a shimmer of light. Still looked like junk, but slightly less junky. The blade had a copper-tinted edge and jagged teeth, like it had picked a fight with a can opener. Okay, that's kind of cool. The numbers weren't huge, but that last line? Stat bone points. Permanent stats that stick even after the weapon breaks or gets sold. That was game-changing. People spent months grinding for level-ups just to raise their stats by 1 or 2 points. And I just fused 2 literal garbage knives and walked away with +0.7 STR. If I kept this up, slow fuse, steady gains. I don't need to be flashy. I just need to outlast everyone else. The best part? I still had more junk. Next combo. Bent boot dagger plus cracked gauntlet fragment. Fusion initiated. Fusion complete. Steel heel shiv. Tier E. Effect. Weaponized boot tip. +1 AGI. +1 DX. SBP gained. +0.5 AGI. +0.3 STR. I tried it on. It felt sharp. Not in a comfortable way. But I could definitely kick with it. I gave cautious stomp. Clang. Ow. Okay. So it works. Sort of. Note to self. Don't test weapons on your own foot. By the time the sun started dipping, I'd burned through my pile of junk and had the following. 3 fused weapons. None impressive looking, but all functional. A total of +1.2 STR, +0.7 DX, +0.5 AGI and stat bone points. And a growing suspicion that if the government found out, they'd either recruit me or dissect me. I stashed the gear under my coat and headed back toward the orphanage. I took the long way home, cutting through side alleys to avoid the main roads. The less people saw me with makeshift blades strapped to my boots, the better. When I finally made it back, the smell of dinner, or at least something pretending to be dinner, welcomed me. "You're late," Tella said from the kitchen. "I was about to send a slime after you." "I brought something better," I said, tossing her a small monster core I'd found embedded in the junkyard wall. It still had a faint glow. She blinked. "That's heat grade. Soup night just became warm soup night." Her eyes softened. "You've really been pushing yourself lately." I shrugged. "Gotta earn my keep." The little ones ran over as I stepped inside. One of them, Mina, tugged on my sleeve and held out a crooked nail tied to a string. "It's a lucky charm," she said shyly. "Found in the laundry. It's got character." I took it and gave her a serious nod. "Thank you. It'll be the crown jewel of my future equipment empire." She giggled. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at my open status screen in the dark. Status, Ray Arkwright. A level 1. Class, Basic Swordsman. Trait, Equipment Fusion. STR, 6, +1.2 SBP. AGI, 7, +0.5 SBP. Dex, 8, +0.7 SBP. Total SBP, 2.4. It didn't look like much. But to me, it was freedom. Progress. Something no one could take away. No reset. No level drop. Just permanent growth, one trash fusion at a time. I smiled to myself. Let them laugh. Let them chase rare drops and flashy skills. I'll build my strength from the ground up. Literally. I never thought I'd get excited over a pile of broken swords. But here we are. All right, team, I said, addressing my lineup of busted equipment like they were elite dungeon raiders. You're old. You're ugly. Some of you are actively cursed. But we're going to make history today. Silence. Naturally, I crouched beside the pile of scavenged junk I'd hidden in a side alley near the junkyard. A sacred workshop, if you squinted hard enough and ignored the rats. The plan today was simple. Test fusion limits. See how many times I could fuse new gear. What kinds of effects stacked. And most importantly, could I turn literal trash into something that didn't scream, "Please rob me," when equipped? Fusion attempt 1. I picked out a rusted saber and a bent steel fork. Yes, a fork. Equipment fusion initiated. Items: rusted saber plus bent fork. Result: serrated fong blade. Theory. Effect: slight chance to cause bleed on hit, 0.2%. SBP gained, plus 0.5 STR, plus 0.3 DX. Okay, that's not bad. You're still ugly, but now you're dangerous ugly. I gave the weapon a test swing. The blade had a weird sawing edge thanks to the fork's prongs, but it cut through a nearby hanging cloth like paper. I made a fork saber. I am now officially a menace to cutlery everywhere. I spent the next hour fusing everything I could find. 2 broken daggers fused into a long, thin blade with a vibrating hum. A busted iron shield plus scrap chain equals bark guard. A wrist shield that made a clinking sound with every block. And the highlight: a copper cooking pan plus steel bracer equals crimson ring pan. A bludgeon with minor fire resistance. SBP totals: plus 2.3 STR, plus 1.5 AGI, plus 1.2 DX. And counting. Every fusion gave me small, permanent gains. But stacked together, I was starting to feel faster, stronger, like I could actually dodge something if I tried. Honestly, it was terrifying how effective garbage could be if you gave it ambition. The real test came at school the next day. Our homeroom instructor, Mr. Grimmel, had the kind of energy you only get from drinking mana potions like coffee. Today's practical will be basic weapon drills. Pair up, grab a dummy, and get swinging. Normally, I hated these kinds of sessions. Everyone showed off. I got stuck using community weapons that were duller than our cafeteria knives. But not today. Today, I brought my cracked fawn blade. "Ray, what's that?" asked Theo, a classmate who once tried to trade me a sandwich for my last health potion. "It's mine," I said simply. "Looks like something a goblin coughed up. Then let's hope the dummy doesn't catch tetanus." We lined up. I took my stance, heart surprisingly calm. Mr. Grimmel blew the whistle. "Begin." I charged. Not fast, not flashy, but clean. My blade hit the target dummy's joint, just below the arm socket. The serrated edge bit in deep. I followed through with a low, sweeping kick, driving my boot dagger into its base. Crack! The dummy's torso spun off. Everyone turned. "What the heck was that?" Theo blurted. I shrugged. "Budget efficiency." Mr. Grimmel blinked. "That wasn't standard form. That was improvisation." He sounded impressed. Or alarmed. Maybe both. I smiled politely. Improvisations just form with attitude. After practice, I cleaned my gear in the back utility room. That's when someone entered uninvited. "You." I turned to see a girl standing at the doorway, wiping her hands on a greasy cloth. Short hair, soot on her cheek, and a belt full of tools. She looked like she'd punched an anvil in one. "You're the fusion kid, right?" she asked. "Depends. Are you here to sell me legal gear or kidnap me for science?" She grinned. "Name's Rin. Apprentice Smith. I saw your dummy split. You fused that weapon." "Yeah." "You do realize it shouldn't have worked." "Which part? The fusion or the dummy decapitation?" "Both." She stepped inside and tossed something on the bench. A chunk of silvery metal that shimmered slightly red. "This is resonant steel. Legendary weapons use it. But if someone like you fused it with trash..." I raised a brow. "You want to see if I can turn junk into miracles? I want to see if you break the world. The first thing you need to know about slimes? They're deceptively annoying. Sure, they're slow. Sure, they're squishy. But the moment you try to fight one solo, you realize something very important. You never trained to stab a bouncing sack of jelly with eyes. The outskirts of the slime hollows were open to low-level adventurers for basic hunting quests. Technically unsupervised, but still legal. As long as you didn't wander too far in or die too loudly, nobody cared. I stood at the dungeon border, armed with my cracked Fong blade in one hand and a recently fused dagger gauntlet on the other. My stats were nothing impressive on paper, but the stat bone points were starting to stack. I was stronger than my level suggested, and nobody knew. Not bad for a guy whose armor was 60% duct tape. Alright, blah brains. Let's dance. The first slime oozed into view, bouncing slightly as it made a wet fop flop flop sound across the mossy path. Its status tag popped up in my vision. Low slime, level 3. HP, 21. Trait, absorb, basic. Weakness, piercing, perfect. I took a light stance, holding my blade low. As it bounced closer, I lunged forward, aiming for the core. The blade sank in, not pierced, sank. Gross. The slime jiggled violently, blade still embedded. I tried pulling it out, no, stuck. The slime turned toward me. I swear it glared. Okay, new plan. I kicked, hard, right into its squishy side. The boot dagger embedded in my heel connected, slicing part of the slime's body and sending it reeling. My sword slipped free in the motion. Critical hit, bleed applied. Slime HP, 6. Yes. Then it exploded. Not violently. More like a wet balloon full of honey being slapped against a wall. Slime goo everywhere, mostly on my face. I stood there, dripping, sword still raised. Victory smells like damp socks. By the time I cleared out 3 more slimes, I had enough drops to maybe buy a hot lunch. Maybe. But more importantly, I started unlocking passive skills. Skill gained. Improvised blade work. Rank F. Description. Bonus to accuracy and weapon flexibility when using non-standard or hybrid gear. It wasn't flashy, but it was me. Built for chaos. For fusion. For trash tier creativity. I sat under a stone arch near the dungeon entrance and opened my stat screen. Status. Ray Arkwright. A level 2. Class. Basic swordsman. Trait. Equipment fusion. Skills. Improvised blade work. F. STR. 6, plus 2.1 SBP. AGI. 7, plus 1.3 SBP. Dex. 8, plus 1.5 SBP. Vit. 6, plus 0.4 SBP. Slow but steady. Each fusion, each kill, each janky boot stab. It all added up. This wasn't power you showed off. This was power you built. And I was starting to enjoy it. That's when I heard voices. Hey, I saw someone come out this way. Looked like he was soloing the outskirts. A group of students from my class rounded the path. One of them was Bran, the spear guy with a rich dad, too many teeth, and 0 chill. Oh no, I muttered. They spotted me instantly. Bran's eyes narrowed. You came here alone? What? Scraping slime gunk for lunch money. I smiled blandly. It's more nutritious than whatever they feed you at Goldcrest Academy. Still playing with broken weapons? He sneered, stepping closer to my gear. That's not even standard issue. Where'd you buy that? The garbage can. Technically, yes. He scoffed. You're going to get flattened the moment you hit real dungeons. Funny, I said. So far I've only been flattened by tuition fees. Bran stepped forward, raising his spear like he was about to show off. Want to spar? Or are you scared your toy will break? Tempting. Very tempting. But I had slime gunk in my boot, 0 healing items, and no desire to end the day with a snapped rib. Nah, I said, brushing past him. Wouldn't want you to blame the trash if you lost. He bristled, but didn't stop me. Small wins. I'd take them. By the time I got back to the orphanage, the sun was dipping low. I handed the monster cores to Ms. Tella, who lit them under the pot for extra heat. Mina handed me another gift, a slightly cracked spoon. It's lucky, she said again, smiling. I looked at the spoon, then at my busted gear. You know what? Maybe it is. Later that night, I sat in bed, testing fusion combinations with the spoon and a bent bolt I'd kept from earlier. Fusion activated. Result: spoon dagger, tier E. Effect: plus 2 LUK, while equipped. SBP gained: plus 0.8 LUK. I stared at the screen. I just got lucky because of spoon. I set it beside my pillow like a holy relic. Warm soup. That was the reward for slaying slimes, scraping together monster cores, and getting publicly insulted by a spear-wielding fashion disaster. And honestly, totally worth it. I sat at the rickety kitchen table, a towel over my head, still dripping from the world's messiest battle with the slime. My boots squelched when I walked. My sword hand was sore. My stat screen had a modest glow-up. But when the soup pot began to simmer, really simmer, not just steam with passive-aggressive hissing, that was the real victory. Ms. Tella stirred it with a long-handled ladle like she was defusing a bomb. Never thought I'd say this, but this is real heat, she muttered. And it's not setting off the fire charms. I nodded. I used a clean crystal this time. High mana density, low flare risk. She looked at me like I'd started speaking Elvish. You're becoming one of those dungeon weirdos, aren't you? Probably, I said. Still better than becoming a tax collector. The soup wasn't fancy. Just sliced root bulbs, dried greens, and a pinch of monster salt. But with the heat crystal under the pot, it had actual flavor. And warmth. The kids swarmed the table like goblins on payday. Ray made it warm again. Mina shouted, her cheeks glowing pink from the steam. I held up my hands. Credit goes to the slime I stabbed in the face. Let's give him a round of applause. Polite applause. The kids were used to making the best of things. They didn't need golden weapons or rare traits. Just warmth, food, safety, and maybe a bedtime story that didn't involve dungeon parasites. Later, after the bowls were empty and the kids tucked in, I stepped outside to the narrow stone steps behind the orphanage. The air was cold again, but clean. I sat down, pulled on my status screen, and took a long look. Status, Ray Arkwright. A level 2. Class, Basic Swordsman. Trait, Equipment Fusion. Skills, Improvised Blade Work F. STR, 6, plus 2.4 SBP. AGI, 7, plus 1.5 SBP. Dex, 8, plus 1.6 SBP. Luck, 3, plus 0.8 SBP. Total SBP, 6.3. Still low level. Still under the radar. But those stat bone points, that was progress no one could steal, undo, or outbid. Mine forever. And it was only the beginning. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the spoon dagger, courtesy of Mina's lucky spoon and a discarded bolt. It looked ridiculous. It handled even worse. But it worked. That was kind of the theme with my life. Broken stuff still had value. You just had to give it the right fusion. A quiet creak came from the door behind me. Ms. Tella stepped out, wrapping a shawl around her shoulders. You're still up. Habit, I said. I like seeing the stars. She nodded, sitting beside me. I remember when you first got here. Couldn't even hold a broom properly. I'm still not great with them. Too top-heavy. She chuckled, then went quiet for a moment. You've changed. Not really. You have, she said gently. But it's a good kind of change. We sat in silence for a while. Just the sound of distant wind and the faint hum of the cooling crystal under the soup pot. I'm going to keep doing this, I said eventually. Dungeon runs. Gear fusion. Stat farming. Even if it's slow. I figured, she replied. You've got that look. What look? Though I'm not going to stop until the world notices me look. I smiled faintly. Let's hope the world doesn't notice too soon. I'm still working with spoon daggers. Back in my room, I placed the spoon dagger on my desk like a prize trophy. My gear still looked like junk. My stats were barely above average. And the school didn't even know my trait was worth anything. But I had heat in the soup pot. Kids with full bellies. A system no one else understood. And a spoon that boosted my LUK stat. If that's not a win, I don't know what is. There's an unspoken rule in the adventuring world. If a guy sells weapons out of a tent held together by duct tape and prayer, you should absolutely not trust him. Unless you're me. The morning after soup night, I headed to the back alleys near the adventurers market. It was still early. Too early for real guild hunters to be out. But for bargain bin delvers like me, it was prime time. And there, tucked between a cursed pet shop and a fried slime stand, stood a familiar tarp-covered stall with a sign that read, Dusty Lenny's Discount Armory. Guaranteed to sometimes work. The tarp flapped as I stepped inside, revealing a maze of crates, hooks, and strange smells that probably violated several merchant laws. Kid, a gruff voice called from behind a rusted display case. You again. A man with a triple-layer beard and suspiciously glowing goggles popped up from behind a pile of crossbow springs. Lenny, black market gear dealer, collector of previously owned equipment, and possibly immortal. Welcome back to the finest gear graveyard in the city, he said, throwing his arms wide. Need a dagger that screams? A helmet with a built-in cup holder? I've got it all. I need junk, I said. Cheap junk. Fusible junk. He squinted. Still running that quirky trait, huh? Still turning trash into triumph. Lenny laughed like a man who'd swallowed a dungeon mimic once and survived. All right, follow me. Got a fresh batch of failures this morning. Some were even owned by people who survived using them. He led me to a crate marked questionably legal returns and pried the lid open. Inside, bent swords, scorched daggers, cracked bracers, something that might have been a cursed salad fork. 50 silver for the whole lot. I stared at him. Lenny, I've seen trash with better resale value. Fine. 40. And I'll throw in a bonus item. I raised an eyebrow. Bonus. He reached under the counter and pulled out a leather pouch with something metal inside. Behold, the slightly cursed iron ring. I stared. It's a ring. It's slightly cursed. How slight are we talking? Once belonged to a guy who sleepwalked into a bear nest. Could be unrelated. I sighed, dropped 40 silver on the counter, and walked out with a sack of glorified scrap. Back at the orphanage, I set up my mini fusion station behind the shed, 2 crates, a folded tarp, and my fusion focus crystal. Budge alchemy at its finest. Time to test today's haul. Fusion 1. Broken dagger plus ring of unknown origin. Result. Hook Fong loop blade, tier D. Passive. Plus 1 AGI. Plus 5% crit chance. SBP gained. Plus 0.6 AGI. Plus 0.3 LUK. Okay, that was decent. The ring might have been cursed, but it gave the blade a sharper edge and a weird bounce to my steps. I could feel the agility buff immediately, like my feet wanted to tap dance without asking permission. Fusion 2. Chipped buckler plus steel fork handle. Result. Iron bite guard. Tier E+. Passive. Plus 2 VIT while blocking. SBP gained. Plus 0.5 VIT. Not flashy, but functional. I strapped it to my left arm, gave it a few test blocks, and didn't immediately feel like I was going to die. A win. Fusion 3. Bent short sword plus broken spoon dagger. Farewell, old friend. Result. Whispering edge, tier D. Passive. 3% chance to silence enemy spells on hit. SBP gained. Plus 0.7 STR. Plus 0.5 DEX. The blade looked sleek. Lightweight. Even had a faint hum when I held it near mana crystals. Welcome to the lineup. I muttered, sliding it into my sheath. By the time I was done, my stat screen looked a little healthier. Status, Ray Arkwright. A level 2. Class, Basic Swordsman. Trait, Equipment Fusion. Skills, Improvised Blade Work, F. STR, 6, plus 3.1 SBP. AGI, 7, plus 2.1 SBP. Dex, 8, plus 2.1 SBP. Vit, 6, plus 0.5 SBP. Luck, 3, plus 1.1 SBP. Total SBP, 8.9. Almost 9 stat points gained without a single level up. Slow and steady. Like a rat who hoarded broken traps and accidentally became king of the basement. As I packed up my gear, a shadow fell across the shed. I turned to see Rin standing there, arms crossed, with a heavy gear bag slung over her shoulder. You really bought from Lenny, she said, smirking. You knew. He tried to sell me a haunted soup pot once. That might have actually been useful. She stepped forward and dropped her bag with a thud. Inside, more scrap, but the good kind. Higher metal purity, better enchant basis. Still rejected gear, but a cut above my usual finds. I want to see what happens, she said. What happens when? When someone fuses junk with potential. I looked down at the sack of scrap, then at my trembling, half-improvised blades, and grinned. Let's find out. There's a fine line between innovation and injury, and I was rapidly flipping back and forth across it like a broken pendulum. Try again, Rin said, arms crossed, standing well out of kicking range. I took a deep breath, steadied my stance, and promptly flung myself into a barrel. Thud. Ow. Correction, she said flatly. Try it without aiming directly at your own foot this time. Boot dagger combat. My proud, improvised technique born from necessity, poverty, and exactly zero formal training, was not what anyone would call graceful. But ever since fusing that hook dagger into my heel last week, I've been trying to make it work. The goal? Agile, low-profile strikes from unexpected angles. Like surprise dropkicks with knives. The reality? Bruises. So many bruises. We were training behind the blacksmith's side yard, where Rin had cleared a little arena space for me. A few dummy targets stood at various distances, each one wrapped in old armor scraps. I took a running start, slid low on the dirt path, and snapped my heel out toward a dummy's midsection. Clang. My boot dagger connected, slicing through its side. Skill progress detected. Improvised movement style. Fusion-linked trait compatibility. 61%. New skill acquired. Blade Dancer's Instinct. Rank F. Passive. Increases agility, precision, and movement speed while using fused melee gear or non-standard weapons. I froze. Wait, did I just unlock a skill for kicking things with knives? Rin blinked. Did it actually register? I opened my status screen. Sure enough, there it was. New skill unlocked. Blade Dancer's Instinct. Rank F. Passive. Plus 8% AGI. Improved limb coordination when fighting with fused or unconventional gear. I stared at it, then looked down at my boots. I'm a martial artist now, with leg knives. You're an idiot, Rin muttered, but apparently an effective one. We took a short break, and I reviewed my current setup while Rin smelted something shiny and probably dangerous in her forge. Current loadout. Whispering Edge, Tier D. Chance to silence spells on hit. Hook Fong Loop Blade, Tier D. Boost crit chance and agility. Steel Heel Shiv, Fused Boot Dagger. Now officially part of my combat style. Iron Bite Guard, Wrist Shield. Modest vitality buff while blocking. Stats with SBP. STR. 6, plus 3.1. AGI. 7, plus 2.6. Boosted by new skill. Dex. 8, plus 2.1. Vit. 6, plus 0.5. Luck. 3, plus 1.1. Total SBP. 9.4. Not flashy, but steadily climbing. Most kids at school still hovered around their base stats unless they came from guild families or trained in elite towers. Meanwhile, I was building myself from scrap and awkward kicks. It was working. Sort of. All right, Rin said, pulling something from her forge. One more experiment. She handed me what looked like a curved piece of bronze alloy with a notched grip. What's this? Failed crossguard from a twin blade design. Couldn't stabilize the core. Useless for a real weapon. So perfect for me. We fused it with a broken sword hilt and a piece of light chain. Equipment fusion complete. Result, Rebound Fong, Tier D. Passive, plus 10% to parry timing. On perfect deflect, recoil bounces user backward 2 meters. SBP gained, plus 0.6 AGI, plus 0.5 DX. Okay, now that is interesting, I said, holding the weapon. A blade with built-in backward momentum. Could be useful for mobility. Or comedy. Possibly both. Let's test it, I said, stepping toward the dummy again. You're going to break something, Rin warned. I already did. It's how I made this. I dashed forward, aimed a block just as the dummy's weighted arm swung toward me. And time to recoil. Whoomp. I shot backwards like I'd been launched from a slingshot, landed flat on my back in the dirt, and groaned. Okay. I love it. Needs a harness. You're insane, Rin muttered. But I'm starting to believe in this crazy system of yours. I dusted myself off, still smiling. So am I. That night, back at the orphanage, I pulled up my full status window before bed. The numbers weren't impressive yet, but they were mine. Built by my hands, one fusion at a time. Tomorrow, I'd hit the dungeon outskirts again. With leg daggers. And spring-loaded swords. And a combat style no sane person would copy. And I'd keep going. Because junk or not, I was making it work. Level 3. That's where I was at. Just 3 levels deep into this system-built nightmare world. And the universe had already decided to throw something weird at me. It started with a simple notification. Evolution path detected. You have fulfilled 33% of your personal evolution prerequisites. New mission fragment unlocked. Forge your identity. 1/3 passive skills acquired. Fusion path branching in progress. I blinked at the message. Then read it again. Then out loud. Slowly. Evolution path detected. I'm level 3. This isn't supposed to happen until level 20. I stared at the status screen like it had personally insulted me. Because, honestly, it kinda had. At school, they drilled it into us. Every 20 levels, a person would face a class evolution mission. Complete it, and your class evolves. Basic swordsman to duelist, spell initiate to mage apprentice, etc. It was a big deal. It was supposed to be predictable. But apparently, the system took one look at my cobbled-together skill set and said, yeah, this guy needs an upgrade immediately. Which was flattering, in a horrifying sort of way. I opened the mission tab, half expecting it to vanish. Instead, a flickering interface appeared with 3 lines. Evolution mission fragment. 1/3. Forge your identity. Progress. 1 of 3. Black small square, unlock 3 passive skills. Black small square, fusion compatibility rating, 40%. Black small square class progression detected. Path diverging. Path diverging? That sounded ominous. What does that even mean? I muttered. The system helpfully did not respond. Just glowed faintly and waited for me to figure it out like a cosmic scavenger hunt. I ran my fingers through my hair, mentally tallying what I already had. Improvised blade work, blade dancer's instinct, F. That was 2 passives down. 1 more to go. And apparently, once I got it, my path would change. The system was clearly building something specific around me, around my trait, which made sense, but also meant I was running blind into the unknown. Exciting. Terrifying. Mostly terrifying. Rin was less concerned. It means the system's adapting to you, she said as she hammered a glowing slab of, or on her forge bench. You're not just leveling normally, you're fusing your way up. It's probably recalculating. I don't like being recalculated, I muttered. Yeah, well, that's what happens when you break the rules. I sighed. I was hoping to at least get to level 5 before I had an existential class crisis. Too late. She smirked and tossed me a fresh piece of gear. Some kind of busted chainmail gauntlet with enchantment threads still sparking weakly. Try this next, she said. It's got high synergy potential if you fuse it with mobility gear. Think I can trigger another passive? Only one way to find out. We spent the next hour fusing, testing, and, on my end, crashing into things. Fusion. Chainmail gauntlet plus reinforced boot padding. Result. Wire step greaves. Tier D. Passive. Reduces stamina drain from agile movement. SBP gained. Plus 0.5 AGI, plus 0.4 VIT. Then, new passive skill unlocked. Stamina Sink. Rank F. Reduces stamina cost of chained attacks and evasions. 3 passives. A soft chime rang in my ears. Mission fragment complete. Forge your identity. 3/3 achieved. Evolution mission, now 33% complete. Progress toward class evolution. Fusion path, diverging. Subclass options. Generating. A new tab popped open on my status screen, flashing with golden light. And under it, an entry labeled Evolution Path Projection. Adaptive Hybrid Class. Title pending. Adaptive Hybrid, I whispered. That was definitely not part of the school curriculum. I headed back home late that evening, still turning the words over in my mind. The other kids in my year were just starting to hit level 5. Most were focused on memorizing basic skill scrolls or grinding beginner dungeons in teams. Me? I was already being nudged onto a different class path. One with no clear title, no lineage, no guidebooks, just junk, fusion, and a growing pile of permanent stat boosts. That night, I sat by the orphanage window, watching the stars and letting the cool air clear my thoughts. Fusion wasn't just a gimmick. It was my core. My route. And if the system wanted me to evolve early, then I'd meet it halfway. But I wasn't going to pick the strongest sounding class or the flashiest subclass tree. No, I'd pick the path that let me stay exactly who I was. Unpredictable, creative, and completely underestimated. Here's a fun fact. Just because 2 things can be fused doesn't mean they should be. I learned this right around the time a dagger fused with a light-boosting gem and started glowing like a broken firework. So let me get this straight. Rin said, pinching the bridge of her nose. You fuse a stealth knife, with a light crystal. Yes. And you expected what, exactly? A glowing sneak attack. She stared at me. I'm beginning to think your trait isn't the dangerous part. It's your brain. We were in the forge yard again, my favorite training/chaos zone. Today's goal: figure out if stacking fusion effects could create compound buffs. In theory, I could stack poison damage plus speed enhancement plus critical chance by fusing gear with overlapping themes. In practice, I had a pile of mildly cursed weapons, one singed eyebrow, and a notebook labeled Fusion Notes. Definitely don't try this again. Attempt 1. Rusty Dagger plus Speed Boosted Anklet. Result: Toxin-Fong, Tier D. Passive: plus 1 AGI, slight speed burst after every critical hit. Side effect: causes temporary dizziness after burst. SBP gained: plus 0.5 AGI, plus 0.2 DX. Dizziness. I muttered. I'm not drunk fighting my way through a dungeon. You basically are, Rin replied, tossing me a health bomb. Attempt 2. Old Short Sword plus Poison Gem plus Bent Clawblade Core. Result: Venom Locator, Tier D+. Passive: 10% chance to apply weak poison. Synergy bonus: plus 3% damage to enemies already depuffed. SBP gained: plus 0.8 STR, plus 0.3 INT. Now, this one was interesting. Okay, I said, holding the blade up to the light. This feels functional. Finally, Rin muttered. You've only wasted half a bag of potentially valuable junk. Trial and error is the path to greatness. Trial and faceplant is your brand. With that success, I pulled up my status and confirmed the passive boost. Status update: Ray Arkwright. A level 3. Class: Basic Swordsman. Trait: Equipment Fusion. Skills: Improvised Blade Work, Blade Dancer's Instinct F, Stamina Sync F. STR: 6, plus 3.9 SBP. AGI: 7, plus 3.1 SBP. Dex: 8, plus 2.3 SBP. Vit: 6, plus 0.5 SBP. Luck: 3, plus 1.1 SBP. Int: 5, plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP: 11.2. That stat total was creeping closer to someone 10 levels higher than me. And that was without having evolved yet. You're making progress, Rin admitted. But you need to be careful. If you stack the wrong effects, you'll overload the fusion. Overload. She tossed me a faded fusion scroll. Inside were handwritten notes, probably her master's. Synergy overload occurs when 3 or more clashing effects are forced together. Outcome may include item instability, mana backlash, or psychological side effects. I paused. Wait, psychological? She shrugged. One guy fused a fear charm with a rage boost sword. Started hallucinating monster screams every time he blinked. Cool. Let's never do that. Naturally, 5 minutes later, I did something close to that. Attempt 3. Parry Blade plus Flame Core Fragment plus Reflective Mirror Shard. Result: Mirror Fire Rebound Saber, Tier C. Unstable. Passive: reflects 15% magic damage. Chance to ignite user. SBP gained: plus 1.2 STR, plus 0.5 AGI, plus 0.6 DX. Warning: item is unstable under high mana pressure. The blade vibrated ominously in my hands, flickering with distorted reflections and faint embers. You know, this one's going back in a box. You made a sword that might explode from being looked at too hard, Rin muttered. Congratulations. I'll save it for someone I really hate. The good news: my fusion logic was working. Stack-related effects, get synergy bonuses. Combine conflicting themes, get a flaming disaster sword. More importantly, I could now predict SBP yield based on component tiers. Higher grade pieces gave better results and improved skill chances, which meant my growth wasn't just slow, it was scalable. I wasn't leveling, I was layering. I returned to the orphanage that night with a new blade, a pocket full of cores, and a mind buzzing with ideas. The kids were already asleep, the lights dim. I crept into the kitchen and quietly dropped a small slime crystal into the stove's mana socket. The room hummed to life with a low blue glow. Even tiny things made a difference. That's what fusion taught me. Small parts, Right combinations. Unexpected power. I sat by my window, flipping my new dagger in hand, and opened my status screen one more time. A new tab had appeared at the bottom. Fusion Codex, 12 out of 100 known synergies. And below that, in glowing text, Path Divergence, Tier 1 Hybrid Evolution option unlocked. Selectable upon reaching level 10. I didn't know what the future class would be called, but it was already forming, and I'd be ready when it did. It all started because I forgot how to say no to a teacher. "Arkwright, you're up for the field dungeon this weekend," said Mr. Grimmel, our battle instructor, looking up from a clipboard. "You've missed 2 team assessments. Time to catch up." I blinked. I thought I was slotted for solo training. "You were, but you've been approved for group evaluation." My brain immediately lit up with sirens. Group evaluation, as in working with classmates, with eyes, who talked and asked questions like, "Hey, why does your sword look like a cursed fork glued to a shovel?" "I'm not really team material," I said. Mr. Grimmel gave me the look teachers reserve for kids who try to fake their own deaths to skip gym. "You're going. That's final." So that's how I ended up in a beginner dungeon with the Try Hard Squad. Officially, they were known as Team 6C, a rotating group of dungeon trainees who hadn't quite made it into the elite ranks, but were still loud, flashy, and dangerously undersupervised. Unofficially, they were the group where everyone tried to outshine everyone else. We had Bran, spear user with rich parents and a mouth that needed a mute button. Kale, dual dagger wielder who thought flipping his weapons made him look cool. Nia, support caster who posted her healing stats on social feed like a leaderboard. And me, the guy with the weird gear, according to Bran. "Why'd they stick you with us?" he said as we waited at the dungeon gate. "Did they run out of actual swordsmen?" "Probably," I said. "I'm a budget version." Bran snorted. "You better not drag us down." "Oh, Bran. You sweet, clueless boy." The dungeon was Moss Root Cavern, a standard F-rank crawl, 3 chambers, some slimes, a few goblin scouts, and a minibus at the end if you were lucky. The other 3 charged in like it was a race. I hung back, checking my loadout. Whispering Edge, D. Venom Locator, D+. Steel Heel Shiv, Boot Dagger. Iron Bite Guard, Wrist Shield. Passive skills, Improvised Blade Work, Blade Dancer's Instinct, Stamina Sync. Current SBP total, 11.2. Still not flashy, but in a one-on-one fight, I was probably the strongest in the group, which made it extremely important that nobody noticed. The first room was slimes. Bran made a show of skewering 2 at once with his spear. "Easy," he said. "This is barely training." Kale did a double backflip to stab one, then nearly tripped over a rock. Nia healed him preemptively and bragged about it. I, meanwhile, quietly cleared 2 slimes on the edge using my boot dagger and a fusion mini-trap I'd buried in the mud. They didn't notice. Perfect. The second room was trickier. Goblin scouts with spears and slings. Bran charged in like a hero. Predictably, the goblins ignored him and started chucking stones at Nia. She squealed and ducked. Kale tried to flank, but got tangled in moss vines. I sighed and slipped behind a stone column, pulling out one of my custom fusion traps, a weighted blade fuse wired to a trip thread. I wedged it into a crevice, tossed a stone to draw attention, then waited. 2 goblins charged me. Tripwire triggered. Blade snapped up and nailed one in the leg. I dropped low and spun-kicked the second with my boot dagger. Crack. Goblins down. Quietly. Clear. Bran shouted like he'd done everything himself. I didn't correct him. But then came the third room. The mini-boss. A stoneback lizard. Big, armored, and very bitey. Usually required coordination. Bran stabbed its flank. His spear bounced off. Kale tried for the tail. Got swatted into a wall. Nia panicked. Heels flying. No strategy. "Ray," Bran shouted. "Do something." "Oh, now I exist." "Fine." I darted around the boss's blind spot, slid under its lunge, and jammed one of my stronger fusion daggers right between 2 scale ridges. Venom Locator. Weak poison applied. Then I sprang back and activated a buried blade trap from earlier, tied to a rebound cord. The blade whipped around, smacking the lizard's snout, just enough to throw it off balance. Bran lunged forward for a final stab while it staggered. It collapsed. Boss down. Victory. And still, I hadn't technically shown off. At least, that's what I thought, until Kale walked up afterward. You planted a trap before we even entered the room, he said quietly. I froze. Wasn't obvious, I said. Just instinct. He smiled a little. You're not flashy, but you're dangerous. Bran, meanwhile, was already gloating to the instructor. Figures. Back at school, Mr. Grimmel gave us our reports. Team passed. Special commendation to Arkwright for battlefield prep. I blinked. What? You laid down 3 fusion-based traps without anyone noticing. That's efficient combat support. Bran looked like he'd swallowed a frog. I gave a polite nod and walked off before anyone could say anything else. Later that night, I added a note to my fusion journal. Fusion traps equals viable support role. Stay underestimated. Because the less they looked at me, the more space I had to grow. Look, I know how it sounds. No sane person walks into a dungeon thinking, you know what would make a great weapon? A chair. But here's the thing, I'm not sane. I'm resourceful. It started when I returned to the Moss Root Cavern outskirts for a solo run. I wanted to test trap fusions in live combat, and the goblins in the Eastern Chamber were just active enough to make decent test subjects without trying to eat my liver. Also, I may have been avoiding school for a day. Not because I was brooding or anything. Mostly because Bran had started calling himself the Lizard Slayer. I needed a break from the secondhand cringe. Anyway, the plan was simple. 1. Sneak into Goblin Camp Alpha. 2. Set up new fusion tripwire traps. 3. Test furniture-based synergy theories. 4. Don't die. The chair came from a collapsed supply shack just outside the dungeon's perimeter. It was old, moldy, and missing 2 legs. In other words, perfect. I dragged it into cover, snapped off one intact leg, and fused it with a broken spearhead and some chain links. Equipment fusion complete. Result, chain leg pike, tier D. Passive, plus 3% reach, chance to stagger on hit. SBP gained, plus 0.6 STR, plus 0.4 DX. It looked like something a goblin blacksmith would throw away, but when I jabbed it into a practice log, the whole post rattled. I've made a tactical broomstick of violence, I muttered. Next came the trap. I took the chair seat, fused it with a bent iron plate and a discarded spring mechanism from a dungeon door hinge. Fusion. Impact plate trap. Tier E+. Effect. Launches upward with force when triggered. SBP gained. Plus 0.3 STR, plus 0.3 VIT. I buried the trap under some moss near a narrow pass, baited it with dried meat, and waited in the shadows. It took all of 4 minutes. A goblin scout wandered by, sniffing, spear slung lazily over its shoulder. It stepped right on the trap. Boom! The plate launched upward, catching the goblin in the chin with a crack that echoed down the cavern like a slap in a cathedral. I winced. That's going in the notebook. The goblin crumpled. I quickly harvested its crystal core and stashed it in my belt pouch. Profit. 1 core, 2 SBP fragments, and the growing knowledge that I could weaponize furniture with terrifying results. Status update. Ray Arkwright. A level 4. STR. 6, plus 4.5 SBP. AGI. 7, plus 3.4 SBP. Dex. 8, plus 2.7 SBP. Vit. 6, plus 0.8 SBP. Luck. 3, plus 1.1 SBP. Int. 5, plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP. 12.8. I repeated the process with a second trap, this time fusing a bent table leg with a retractable blade mount. The goblins never stood a chance. By the time I exited the dungeon, I had 3 more cores, 5 new fuse gear concepts, and a growing addiction to creating chaos out of junk. Back at the orphanage, I returned just in time for dinner. Ms. Teller raised an eyebrow as I walked in, muddy and smelling faintly of goblin. Have fun. Learn how to make chair-based weaponry. I don't want to know. She handed me a bowl of stew and walked away like this was normal. It kind of was. After dinner, I sat in my room, flipping through my rapidly growing fusion logbook. I'd started labeling things. Tactical stick, version 2.0. Exploding footplate, MKI. Bait bucket, rejected, too smelly. Chair lance, yes. I turned the page and began sketching a new design. A collapsible trap made from curtain rods and hollow dagger hilts. I didn't have a class evolution yet. No title. No guild. No backing. But I had junk. ideas, and progress that couldn't be undone. And, somehow, that was starting to feel like enough. I always assumed stat increases were more of a theoretical thing. Like, sure, your STR goes up and you hit harder. But it's not like the world slows down or a dramatic choir plays every time you unlock +1 AGI. Turns out, after about 12.8 SBP worth of upgrades, you start to feel different. The first sign was in the mirror. I don't usually check my reflection. No time, no reason, no functioning mirror for the last 3 years. But that morning I caught a glimpse in a shop window while passing by and did a double take. I looked sharper, not like I was shredded or glowing or anything, but there was definition. My posture had straightened. My eyes were clearer. My jaw looked like I'd stopped eating sadness for breakfast. And when I jogged up the orphanage stairs 2 at a time, no wheezing, no thigh burn, just casual, quiet, efficient motion. At school, we had combat application day, aka Let's get humiliated in front of their crushes day. Everyone was split into pairs and assigned wooden training weapons. We were told to spar lightly. Naturally, everyone took it to mean go full anime rival mode. I was paired with Theo, a classmate who was basically a golden retriever in human form. Friendly, loud, not exactly dangerous. He smiled at me as we stepped into the ring. Let's go easy, yeah? I nodded. Then he charged. I stepped to the side. Not dodged. Stepped. Like it was a dance move I practiced 100 times. His training spears swept through the space I'd just been in. My arm moved before I thought about it. Wooden blade angled low. Clean counterstrike. It tapped his thigh. Clean hit. Theo stumbled. Blinked. Looked at me like I'd just become a whole new person. Whoa, you got way faster. I gave a sheepish shrug. Had some growth. Understatement of the century. We reset. He tried a more aggressive combo this time. 3 fast jabs. Feint low, upward hook. I read it. Easily. Caught the blade with my guard. Stepped in, booted lightly at his shin, and nudged him off balance with a shoulder feint. Tap. Neck. Match point. The whole class blinked. Even Mr. Grimmel looked surprised. He said. That's new. Bran, from across the room, squinted at me like he'd suddenly realized I had a stat screen. After class, I ducked out fast and retreated to my usual rooftop hideout, overlooking the city. I pulled up my status screen. Status, Ray Arkwright. A level 4. Class, Basic Swordsman. Trait, Equipment Fusion. Skills, Improvised Blade Work F. Blade Dancer's Instinct F. Stamina Sync F. STR, 6, plus 4.5 SBP. AGI, 7, plus 3.4 SBP. Dex, 8, plus 2.7 SBP. Vit, 6, plus 0.8 SBP. Luck, 3, plus 1.1 SBP. Int, 5, plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP, 12.8. Each number looked small on its own, but together, they were stacking into something real. It wasn't just that I was stronger. I was reacting faster, seeing things a split second before they happened, thinking sharper, moving with less wasted energy. SBPs weren't just numbers. They were compounding upgrades. And best of all, permanent. No buffs to wear off. No cooldowns. No timers. This was me now. Later, while grabbing some cheap lunch bread at the corner stall, the vendor handed me my change and said, "Hey, you're walking different. Got a bit of that adventurer swagger now." I blinked. I'm literally wearing a cracked shoulder pad and 1 boot dagger. He chuckled. Doesn't matter what you wear. When someone starts getting stronger, it shows. I didn't know how to respond to that. So I just nodded, took my bread, and walked away slowly, trying not to look like I had swagger. That night, I stood in my room, stretching quietly in the dim glow of a fused slime crystal. I could feel the tension in my body, the response time of my limbs, the steadiness of my breath. And when I shadow stepped into a strike, the motion was clean, like slicing through air with purpose. This wasn't just about being strong anymore. It was about control. And with every fusion, every point gained, every weird, slapped-together weapon I forged from scraps, I was building the kind of foundation that no one would see coming. Some people bring flowers to their crush. I brought Rin a bag of misfused blade fragments and half a chair leg. Because nothing says romantic like cursed alloy shavings and the smell of melted metal. "Don't drop that," Rin said as I handed over the bag. Too late. She sighed as one of the fragments clattered onto the forge floor, rolling under the anvil like a gilt trip. We were in her workshop again, a squat stone building behind her family's forge, where the real work happened. The main forge was all sails and signage. This was where Rin melted down discarded weapons, reforged second chances, and occasionally threatened to throw me into a smelting pot. You said you wanted weird materials, I said. Well, here's your mystery loot box. She knelt, scooped up a bent chain-link blade chip, and turned it over thoughtfully. Some of this actually isn't bad. That chair leg might be junk, though. That chair leg has history. That chair leg has termites. Battle-hardened termites. She gave me a look, but her mouth twitched at the corner. Tiny victory. We gotta work. Rin started sorting the salvage by material type and mana resonance. I worked beside her, extracting the pieces I thought had high fusion potential, things that had failed interestingly. She tapped a fragment with a small tuning fork and listened to the tone. Low-tier resonance, she muttered. But stable. Might fuse clean with a conductive frame. You really hear it. Yeah, metal sings, especially the stubborn ones. I raised an eyebrow. That is possibly the most blacksmith thing I've ever heard. Rin snorted. I've got a quota to hit. Gotta keep my reputation as the local scrap whisperer. We worked in companionable silence for a while, the clink of metal and hum of forge heat filling the space. After a bit, she handed me something new, a compact wrist guard with a smooth inset chamber. Try fusing this, she said. It's a broken magic tool housing. Old alchemist gear. Might bind clean with your trap triggers. I eyed it. What's the worst that could happen? It could explode. Cool. That's how most of my success stories start. I paired it with a failed trap mount and an old pressure plate shard from a discarded adventurer's boot. Fusion. Alchemist housing plus trap mount plus pressure plate. Result. Snap burst cuff. Tier D. Passive. Once per day. Auto triggers short-range knockback if surrounded. SBP gained. Plus 0.4 AGI. Plus 0.5 EIT. Oh, now this is nice, I said, slipping the cuff onto my arm. Personal space, but make it weaponized. You're basically building a walking scrapyard, Rin muttered. But like a functional one. I gave her a sideways glance. That sounded suspiciously close to a compliment. Don't push it. When we finished sorting the rest of the bag, I leaned back on a crate, arms behind my head. You know, I said, when I first started this fusion thing, I thought it'd just be a weird gimmick to stay alive. And now it's a system, I said. A strategy. A craft. I'm not strong because of what I was given. I'm strong because of what I build. She was quiet for a moment. Then, you're not just building gear. I blinked. Huh. She didn't look at me. Just kept organizing metal. But her voice was softer. You're building you. Piece by piece. Like you're fusing your life together from what's left. I didn't have a reply to that. Just sat with it. Because she was right. And somehow, it meant more coming from her. The forge quieted again, the fire settling into a gentle orange glow. Eventually, Rin stood and dusted her gloves off. I've got a side project I want your help with. A fusion design I can't stabilize on my own. Experimental. Very. Explosive. Possibly. I grinned. You know how to talk to me. As I left her shop that night, my inventory felt a little heavier. Not from the gear, but from the weight of progress. The kind that wasn't listed on a stat sheet. And maybe, just maybe, I wasn't building all of this alone anymore. The thing about solo dungeon runs is that there's no one to blame when everything goes wrong. Well, except yourself. And maybe the system for thinking basic swordsman means boss punching bag. The dungeon was called Hollow Shade Den, an F-tier cavern that usually capped off with a mini-boss. Only today, it was upgraded. Notice, dungeon anomaly detected. Boss evolution event in progress. New boss. Gnarl Claw. The Stoneback Wolf. D-rank. Unstable. Unstable? Awesome. Because that's exactly the kind of word I want associated with giant murder dogs. I stood in the final chamber's entry tunnel, clutching my current fused gear setup. Whispering Edge, D. Chance to silence spells on hit. Venom Locator, D+. Poison Stacking, plus 3% damage to depuffed enemies. Snap Burst Cuff, D. Short Range Emergency Knockback. Iron Bite Guard, E+. Wrist Shield with VIT buff. Steel Heel Shiv Boot Dagger. Mobility and kicks, obviously. And my ace, 2 pre-fused trap triggers I'd embedded into the terrain earlier. 1 spike trap, 1 flash bomb. Low tier, but it was all I had. I crept forward into the chamber. The boss stirred from the shadows, easily the size of a horse, all muscle and mossy stone plating. Gnarled Claw's eyes glowed pale green, and its claws dug craters into the stone with every step. It sniffed once, then growled, and charged. I didn't hesitate. I sprinted left, leading it into the spike trap's trigger line. Trap activated. Spike burst. Hit confirmed. Leg joint cracked. The beast faltered mid-run, one foreleg skewered. I dashed in, planted my foot, and slashed across its side with a venom locator. Poison applied. Weak poison. 3's duration. Bonus active. Gnarled Claw howled. Then it spun, faster than I expected, and slammed its tail toward me. I raised the iron bite guard, braced. Wham! The impact rattled my bones, and I slid back several feet. My arm screamed. The guard held barely. I stumbled, teeth clenched. Okay, no blocking. Got it. It pounced again. I ducked under, slid across the mossy floor, and kicked upward with the steel heel shiv. It grazed the wolf's underbelly, barely, but it gave me enough time to activate the snap burst cuff. Snap burst triggered. Knockback pulse engaged. The mini explosion flared beneath me, launching me backward like a reverse springboard. I slammed into a wall, but missed the claws. Still alive, I muttered. Technically a win. I coughed, staggered to my feet, and pulled out my last trap trigger. Fused with a flash crystal and a cracked reflector shard. This one wasn't meant for damage. Just distraction. I tossed it just as Gnarled Claw lunged again. Flashbang trap activated. Light flared. The boss reared back, blinded. I didn't waste it. 2 quick steps forward, blade in hand, and slash, slash, kick, venom, bleed, daze. The system rang in my head. Threshold reached, boss weakening, HP below 20%. But that was the part where things went wrong. The wolf's howl turned into a roar, and its stone plating cracked, revealing glowing red lines beneath. Unstable core activation detected. Boss entering berserk phase. Oh, come on. It lunged again, this time faster, wilder. I barely sidestepped. 1 claw grazed my shoulder. Blood welled instantly. I stabbed wildly, my blade scraping bone. Clash. Dodge. Scramble. React. I activated every passive I had. Burn stamina. Push my reflexes to the edge. And finally, 1 perfect parry with a whispering edge, followed by a dagger thrust into the eye socket. Critical hit. Silence applied. Venom stack maxed. Fatal damage confirmed. Gnarled Claw collapsed, body smoking, twitching once before going still. I stood there, panting, bleeding, victorious. Loot screen blinked into view. Boss clear. Gnarled Claw. Stoneback wolf. Drops. Stoneback core D tier. Wolf hide plating. Reinforced material. Claw Fong fragment. Fusible component. Unique. Asterisk. SBP gained. Plus 1.4 STR. Plus 0.6 AGI. Plus 0.3 VIT. I dropped to my knees. Worth it. Later, after limping home and sneaking through the orphanage like a blood-covered ninja, I collapsed onto my bed and opened my stat screen. Status. Ray Arkwright. A level 5. STR. 6. Plus 5.9 SBP. AGI. 7. Plus 4.0 SBP. Dex. 8. Plus 2.7 SBP. VIT. 6. Plus 1.1 SBP. Luck. 3. Plus 1.1 SBP. Int. 5. Plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP. 15.1. It was official. I'd taken down a D-rank boss, solo, at level 5. Not because I was the strongest, but because I was prepared. Because Fusion let me create tools that didn't exist for anyone else. Because I made every scrap count. I lay back, one hand over my bandaged ribs, and smiled. This is just the beginning. I didn't exactly limp back into town. I strategically staggered with confidence. Totally different. My cloak was soaked, half my gear was scratched to hell, and I was bleeding from 3 different, definitely not fatal places. But I'd walked out of a D-rank dungeon solo with boss loot in my bag. To me, that was a win. To the receptionist at the adventure checkpoint, That's Gnarlclaw's core, she said, blinking like I'd handed her a live snake. Did your team already report the clear? No team, I said. Just me. Her face went from surprised to suspicious in under 2 seconds. You soloed a D-rank boss at level 5. I had a plan, I said, carefully not mentioning that the plan involved flashbang chairs and a boot dagger. Eventually, they processed the claim, reluctantly. I took the payout in silver, kept the unique loot for fusion use, and vanished before any instructors or guild scouts could sniff me out. Because here's the thing. The second people know you're strong, they want things. Help, favors, challenges, recruitments, questions. And I'm not ready for that. Not yet. I headed straight for Rin's forge. She was hammering out a sword base when I walked in. You're late, she said without looking up. And bleeding. Had a productive afternoon. She glanced over, eyes widening slightly at the claw fragment in my hand. Is that? Yup. Gnarlclaw. Yup. She stared at me, then slowly set down her hammer. You are the dumbest overachiever I've ever met. I grinned, and yet somehow still alive. We got to work immediately. The clawfong fragment was reactive, full of unstable mana, perfect for fusion with sharp or kinetic components. I paired it with a curved dagger base and a hardened bone strip from a failed sword hilt. Fusion complete. Dire hook edge, tier C. Passive, plus 6% crit chance. Applies minor bleed on slash. SBP gained. Plus 1.2 STR, plus 0.5 AGI. It looked brutal. The kind of weapon that wasn't just forged, but earned. Rin eyed it with something like respect. You're pushing into C-tier territory. Most students haven't even cracked, and I plan to keep it that way. She raised an eyebrow, still hiding it, laying low. For now, even after soloing a dungeon boss. Especially after that. Later, back at the orphanage, I gave Ms. Tella half my silver payout under the table. For repairs, I said. She didn't ask questions, just nodded, quietly grateful. The roof would finally stop leaking. The kids would have real heating next month. And maybe, we'd all sleep a little easier. I sat by the window as the night fell, the city glowing like a lazy constellation. I opened my status screen again. Status, Ray Arkwright. A level 5. Class, Basic Swordsman. Trait, Equipment Fusion. Evolution status, 33%. Hybrid path pending. Skills, Improvised blade work F. Blade Dancer's Instinct F. Stamina Sync F. STR, 6, plus 7.1 SBP. AGI, 7, plus 4.5 SBP. Dex, 8, plus 2.7 SBP. Vit, 6, plus 1.1 SBP. Luck, 3, plus 1.1 SBP. Int, 5, plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP, 16.9. I'd earned almost 17 points in permanent stat gains. Without leveling like a maniac. Without backing. Without flashy gear. Just fusion. And planning. Piece by piece. Scrap by scrap. But just as I closed the screen, a soft ping echoed in my mind. New message. System notification. Sender. Unknown. Subject. We see you. Message. Your fusion isn't as hidden as you think. I froze. Then reread it. No name. No return link. Just a statement. And a warning. I stared out at the city, grip tightening around my new fuse blade. So the whispers had started. I wasn't invisible anymore. But I wasn't afraid either. Let them come. Because I was done hiding. There's nothing worse than walking in a homeroom and realizing your name's on the trial board. Especially when you didn't put it there. Arkwright, huh? Theo said, pointing at the notice board. You got pulled for the campus trial? I blinked. The what? You know, the monthly mock dungeon hosted by the combat instructors. Real scouts attend. High risk, high reward. It's like dungeon roulette with classmates instead of loot. I didn't sign up for that. Yeah, that's what makes it interesting. I stared at the sheet. There it was. Trial team roster, Team 4B. Brand Sylvanis. Nia Ethervale. Haru Crest. Ray Arkwright. I sighed. Out loud. For the full 15 seconds it deserved. I didn't need this. Not now. Not when I was sitting on a fragile secret, like soloing a D-rank boss. Not when I was quietly building my stats like a fusion hoarder with trust issues. and definitely not when Bran was team leader. Because of course he was. I tried opt-out. Mr. Grimmel just handed me a sealed envelope. The director overruled it, he said. What? Because you're trending. What? He tapped a scroll with the school's system link forums. My name was listed, midway down a gossip thread titled Secret Dungeon Clears. Who's the mystery solver? No photo. No proof. Just a lot of speculation. And one too accurate post. Word is, someone fused a tripwire in a chair leg and one shot a goblin scout. Either a genius or dangerously unsupervised. Which, yeah, fair. I knew what this meant. Someone was watching. Someone knew. And now I was being tested. Pulled from the shadows. Thrown into the spotlight. Trial by dungeon. I found Rin later that day, hurling molten slag into a cooling trough with a frown. They're pushing me into a trial, I said. She didn't look surprised. Told you it was coming, she said. You think no one noticed your accidental boss kill? You left tracks. Patterns. Loot trails. Someone in the school noticed and whispered upward. And now they want to see what kind of monster you really are. Great. She wiped her hands, then handed me a small iron box. What's this? Your insurance. It's a 3-part fusion frame. Trigger it mid-battle, and it auto-stabilizes a fusion in real time. Mid-fight fusion. She nodded. If things go bad, improvise. I grinned. You know me. Yeah, she muttered. And that's what worries me. The trial was scheduled for the next morning. Location: Steel Root Simulacrum. A simulated dungeon formed by stabilized mana crystals and shaped like a collapsed fortress. Obstacles included mobility terrain traps, tier monster waves, simulated boss encounter, C tier, no healing outside of team casters, no real deaths, but real pain. The crystals simulated damage directly to the nervous system. Fun. That night, I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. My room was quiet. My gear was packed. My fusion kit prepped. I checked my stats one last time. Status: Ray Arkwright. A level 5. Class: Basic Swordsman. Trait: Equipment Fusion. Evolution progress: 33%. Hybrid path pending. STR: 6 plus 7.1 SBP. AGI: 7 plus 4.5 SBP. Dex: 8 plus 2.7 SBP. Vit: 6 plus 1.1 SBP. Luck: 3 plus 1.1 SBP. Int: 5 plus 0.3 SBP. Total SBP: 16.9. I wasn't flashy. I wasn't loud. But I had control. Options: Edge. Let the others come in with legacy weapons and preset rolls. I'd walk in with chair fragments and optimism, and walk out with my path intact. The first rule of surviving a team dungeon trial: don't rely on the team. I showed up early to the staging chamber beneath the Steel Root Simulacrum. Half dungeon, half training arena. All terrible ideas. My gear was packed, traps pre-fused, and I'd eaten a light breakfast of toasted bread and quiet anxiety. Team 4B assembled one by one. And wow, what a lineup. Bran Sylvanis, team leader. Same smug face. Same overpolished spear. Still trying to act like the protagonist of a story only he was reading. He clapped a hand on my shoulder like we were friends. Didn't expect you to make the roster, Arkwright. Me neither, I said. You stick to the back. Support. We'll handle the heavy lifting. I didn't reply. Just smiled in that absolutely thinking about shoving you into a mimic kind of way. Next was Nia Ethereal, the support caster. Capable, precise, and dressed like she moonlighted as a fashion model for enchanted scarves. Let's not waste time, she said, glancing at a scroll. Simulacrum's cycle will end in 30 minutes. If we want full clear bonuses, we need speed and sync. I liked her immediately. Organized, blunt, and unlikely to step in my way unless I gave her a reason to. Then came the wild card. Haru Crest. Quiet guy. Wore glasses. Dagger user with a reputation for sudden violence and an attendance record that screamed mysterious backstory incoming. He nodded once at me and said nothing. I nodded back. A perfect conversation. Bran stepped to the center of the prep room and tapped his spear against the floor. All right, listen up. I'll lead the formation. Haru flanks right. Nia stays mid. Arkwright handles cleanup. Cleanup. Like I was the janitor. I'll lay traps, I said. Stun and redirect setups. Should give us better flow control. Bran shrugged. Whatever. Just don't trip over your own junk. Nia raised an eyebrow. He soloed the Moss Root Alpha Chamber. Let him prep. Bran waved it off. Rumors. Anyone could say they beat a mini-boss. Doesn't mean anything in a real trial. I didn't argue. Not because he was right, but because the less he believed in me, the more surprised he'd be when I saved his overconfident spear-holding butt. We entered the Steel Root Simulacrum under the echo of system chimes. Trial challenge. Begin. Goal. Clear all 3 sectors. Simulated boss engagement required. Bonus objective. 0 team KOs. Reward multiplier. X 1.4. The dungeon terrain was dynamic. Stone corridors that reshaped as we moved. Spiked roots crawling across the floor like frozen vines. Crystals hummed in the walls, casting a silver-blue glow. I immediately broke off from the main path and began setting traps. One at a tight corner, fused tripwire plus flash gem. Another behind a loose root cluster, shrapnel burst trap. And one more near a descending staircase, anchored net hook. They wouldn't stop enemies, but they'd stall them. Force positioning. Create openings. I didn't fight for glory. I fought to control the fight. Meanwhile, Bran was giving his worst speech. Remember, aggression wins. Don't let them corner us. Haru, keep pressure. Nia, prep support. Arkwright, stay out of my sight line. I gave him a thumbs up and imagined fusing his spear to a doorknob. First wave, simulated goblins. Light armor, fast movers. Nothing special, until they rushed from both sides. Haru vanished from my periphery, like a shadow blinked out of existence. Moments later, 3 goblins dropped with clean neck shots. Nia cast a burst ward that pulsed, slowing the left flank. Bran waded in, spear spinning like a drill, shouting something about lineage strength. And me? I triggered my corner trap, flash blinding the last 2 stragglers, then swept one into my rebounding spring trap. Trap triggered. Impact confirmed. Stagger applied. 1 down. Boot dagger to the ribs on the second. Done. Brandon notice. Which was fine. Second wave. Animated bone dogs. Faster. Stronger. Bran miscalculated the pack split and nearly got surrounded. I tossed a blade fuse at his feet. Instant mini wall of spikes. He stumbled back. Watch where you throw those, Arkwright. You're welcome. We reached the sector checkpoint. 3 clears. 0 damage taken. I reset my traps. Quietly. And Haru stepped next to me while Bran ranted at Nia about pacing and synergy. Your traps, Haru said softly. They're clean. I blinked. Thanks. You should lead next time. I blinked again. Did I just get approval from the scariest person on the team? I wasn't sure what to do with that. We pressed forward. Boss chamber next. I checked my last fusion trigger. Rin's special multi-part activation device. Still stable. Still dangerous. I slipped it into my coat, closed my inventory, and took a breath. Because if Bran thought this was the hard part, he had no idea what I'd been building for the finale. There's a certain sound that happens right before someone makes a very bad decision. It's not screaming. It's not a system alert. It's silence. A silence where everyone knows what's about to happen, and no one can stop it. That's what I heard when Bran charged the boss without waiting for the formation to set. We'd barely stepped into the chamber when it rose from the floor. Boss spawn detected. Entity, Verdant Tyrant, Steel Root Variant, C tier, Adaptive Type. HP, 7,300. Traits, Root Armor, Regrowth Cycle, Spike Bloom, Adaptive Defense Asterisk. It looked like a giant walking tree, but angry. Twisted bark over plated stone, for limbs like armored vines, and a gaping mouth full of glowing crystal thorns. So naturally, Bran yelled, I've got aggro, and ran straight in. With a spear, against a root-armored, magic reactive tree beast. Brilliant. Haru cursed under his breath. Nia was already prepping shields. I reached for my fusion cuff. I told him to wait. Nia muttered. Why doesn't he ever? Thwack. The boss's limb smashed the ground. Bran barely rolled aside. The impact alone shook the entire room. The thing was fast. Not just big and tank fast. Bran's next spear strike clanged uselessly off bark armor. Then the boss responded. Ability. Spike Bloom. Active. Targets. Bran. Front arc. Roots exploded outward like a porcupine on steroids. Bran was launched backward, slamming into the dungeon wall hard enough to leave a crater. Great opening, I muttered. Really textbook. I activated my snap burst cuff, vaulted over a root lurching toward Nia, and dropped a fuse trigger mid-roll. Trap armed. Chain pin plus trip plate synergy. Effect. Short stun plus root bind, if enemy steps through. It wouldn't kill the thing, but it'd buy time. Nia. I called. Cast a lay field, bottom left quadrant. She nodded and started the incantation. Haru slipped in from the opposite flank, dual daggers out, aiming for exposed joints in the legs. I moved to intercept the next root slam. My venom lacerator dug in, spreading poison with a rapid twitch of the blade. It wasn't much, but it was a start. Boss HP, 6,870. Status, poison light, slowed, partial. The system didn't lie. Every action counted. Every trap and blade and reaction mattered. But this wasn't going to be enough. Not against a boss that could adapt. As if on cue, the verdant tyrant pulsed with energy. Trait shift detected. Adaptive bark. Piercing resistance applied. It was learning. Every hit it took, it was reshaping itself to counter. Bran staggered up, groaning. I'm fine. Just a scratch. You got punted into the wall. Nia snapped. I said I'm. A root lashed out, cracked him across the ribs, and sent him flying again. I sighed. Okay, I muttered. Time to break the emergency glass. I reached into my coat and pulled out Rin's 3-part fusion frame, the one she warned me about. The one I'd only tested in a half-functioning scrap forge. The one she'd said, only use this if things go full disaster. Guess what? We'd reached that point. I slammed it into my whispering edge, then added a split alloy fong, and, because I'm me, a bent crystal spoon I'd been saving just in case. Mid-combat fusion triggered. Stability, 54%. Result, hollow core reverb blade. Tier C+, unstable. Passive, on successful parry, emits mana-disrupting pulse, 5-meter radius. SBP gained, plus 0.9 STR, plus 0.6 DX, plus 0.5 LUK. The blade shimmered like oil on water, its edge vibrating faintly with unstable magic. It hummed in my hand like it was alive. I didn't wait. I sprinted forward. The boss lunged. I ducked under a sweeping branch, let it overextend, and baited the next strike. Timing had to be perfect. It came down, fast and heavy. I twisted, planted my heel, and parried with the new blade. Chime. Parry successful. Hollow core reverb triggered. Disruption pulse emitted. Verdant tyrant. Magic dampened. Adaptive response delayed. The whole room shook. The glow in the boss's bark dimmed. Its movement stuttered, like a machine buffering. Now, I yelled. Haru, Nia. Hit it while it's locked. Nia launched a radiant spike. Haru blurred into motion, carving across the beast's legs. Boss HP. 4,020, 2,600, 1,400. Then, critical condition. Enemy entering berserk phase. Of course. It roared, vines flailing in every direction. One root nearly caught me, but I rolled, flipped the blade, and stabbed the softened chest plate again. Bleed applied. HP. 430. Haru darted in, blades flashing. Final hit. Boss defeated. Trial clear, S-rank efficiency bonus awarded. Silence. Then the system rang again. All combatants survived. Trial completion bonus. Awarded. Ray Arkwright. Individual performance. Rank A+. Notable actions. Mid-combat fusion. Crowd control traps. Target disruption. Boss finisher assist. Bran stared at me. For once, he didn't say anything. Outside the trial chamber, the air felt heavier. I didn't stick around. I logged my trap designs, stored the fusion blade, and walked. Because now people had seen it. The blade. The fusion mid-fight. The control. And that meant one thing. The rumors were about to become headlines. When I woke up the next morning, 3 things were immediately off. 1. My room was cleaner than I left it. 2. There were 3 notifications on my system scroll. And 3. I could hear my name being whispered by kids outside the orphanage window. Not in the he forgot to pay the bread vendor again way. And that's the guy who mid-fused a C+ blade during a live trial and didn't die way. Notification 1. Instructor review posted. Candidate Ray Arkwright displayed non-standard combat methodology, excellent resource control, and tactical fusion usage. Assessment. Recommend individual advancement tier adjustment, pending review. Notification 2. Internal ranking shift. You have moved to rank 42 in school combat rankings. Previous rank, 137. Notification 3. Message received. From, unknown. That was no ordinary fusion. We should talk. V. I stared at the messages for a solid minute, then did the reasonable thing. Closed the scroll and buried my face in my pillow. By the time I dragged myself to campus, the whispers had gone full wildfire. He really fused mid-fight. Thought that was just blacksmith-level technique. Is he secretly from one of the guild families? No way. He wears hand-me-downs. Yeah, but did you see that dodge spin counter into a trap chain? Apparently someone had recorded the trial, and it was circulating. Wonderful. Theo found me outside the cafeteria. Dude, he said, eyes wide. Are you secretly an S-class transfer student? No. Are you possessed by a long-dead crafting god? No. Then what the hell are you? Tired. Rin was less surprised. I told you this would happen, she said that afternoon in the forge, examining my now-dormant hollow core blade. You show your hand, people look. You win the trial, people talk. I didn't win, I said. The team did. She gave me a look. Don't lie. You turned a spear-chucking disaster into an actual strategy. You carried. He was very heavy, I muttered. Exactly. While she tuned the blade stability core, I looked at my fusion journal. Notes. Sketches. Trap schematics. Passive effect theory crafting. What started as a survival trick was turning into a framework. A system. And now, people want to know more. That night, I sat on the rooftop overlooking the city. School lights blinked in the distance. Mana lamps flickered like lazy stars. I opened the message again. That was no ordinary fusion. We should talk. V. No name. No location. But the system tag had a guild-level access marker. Whoever V was, they weren't a student. They were watching. And they knew what I did wasn't just rare. It was impossible by current standards. Then came the final surprise. Request incoming. Dual invitation, ranked challenge. Challenger. Brand Silvaris. Time limit, 24 hours. I blinked. Of course. He couldn't let it go. I closed the screen, leaned back, and let out a slow breath. All right, I muttered. If we're doing this, let's do it on my terms. There's a special kind of dread that hits when your name is posted for a ranked duel. It's not fear. It's not nerves. It's the realization that now you have to make someone eat their words in front of half the school, without looking like you care. The Courtyard Duel Arena was one of the more public locations on campus. Wide circle of stone tiles, tiered seating, system-anchored field barrier to stop anyone from getting stabbed in the face. So naturally it was packed. Students leaned over rails, instructors gathered at the edges, and someone in the front row was selling snack sticks with Fusion Boy versus Blondie signs. Cute. Brand stood in the center of the ring already, spinning his polished spear like it was a stage prop. He wore a high-collar training coat, gold trim, zero subtlety. I challenged you, he said, because I don't believe in flukes. I stepped into the ring, pulling on my light combat jacket, and I accepted because I love making people regret their confidence. There were chuckles from the crowd. Brand's jaw twitched. Good. Let's get petty. Ranked duel initiated. Challenger. Brand Silvaris. Rank 38. Defender. Ray Arkwright. Rank 42. Conditions. First contact, knockdown, or surrender. Field integrity, 100%. Arena adjustments. Basic terrain. No summons, no items. Begin countdown. 10 seconds. I didn't draw my weapon. Didn't move. Just breathed. Waited. Let the space settle. Let Brand's expectations rise. Because when someone underestimates you, that's when the real fight starts. 3, 2, 1. Begin. Brand lunged. Straight forward. No hesitation. He went for a center-line thrust. Quick, clean, textbook spear play. I sidestepped. Barely. His spear grazed past, slicing air where my ribs had been a breath earlier. I planted my boot, slipped behind him, and tapped the steel plate under the sand with my foot. Trap activated. Magnetic lash trigger. Effect. Pulls metal objects to set anchor point for 0.4 seconds. Bran's foot clanged against the plate. His balance shifted. I twisted, dagger in hand, and jabbed. Not at him, but the ground at his left heel. Flash, anchor detonation, blinding spark. Boom. Light flared. Bran cursed and flinched, swinging wildly. I ducked, slid under the arc, flicked a second trap ring. Wired into his own weapon shaft when I deflected earlier. Trigger, spearhead tip, weighted snap fuse. Result, overbalanced recoil. Bran stumbled. I swept his legs. He hit the ground. First contact, Ray Arkwright. Match complete. Winner, rank 42 Arkwright Ray. New rank assigned, 36. Silence. Then, what just happened? That was Bran, flat on his back, still holding a spear that didn't save him. I sheathed my blade, expression neutral. Maybe next time, I said, don't underestimate the janitor. The crowd erupted. I didn't gloat, didn't raise a fist or smirk like a champion. I just walked off the field, because this duel wasn't about him. It was about control, about showing the school that fusion wasn't just a gimmick, that even if my weapons were trash tier in appearance, my preparation was worth gold. And the rankings just took notice. Later that evening, my status updated again. Status, Ray Arkwright. Rank, 36. Fusion Codex, 22 out of 100 known synergies. Skills, improvised blade work, blade dancer's instinct F, stamina sync F, trait path status, evolving, message pending. From V. Subject, nice footwork. We're still watching. Great. Still vague. Still ominous. Still being watched. But at least now, I was on the board. You know how after a big win, you're supposed to get a moment of peace? Yeah. No. What I got was a stack of invitations, 3 casual interviews, and a summon scroll marked with a glowing seal. And I really hate glowing seals. Arkwright, said Instructor Vale, catching me on the walk between classes. We're reviewing your combat logs. I blinked. For what? Technique optimization. Possibly early advancement. Your duel with Bran wasn't just clean, it was clinical. I'm not due for advancement. You weren't. Now you are. Great. Nothing says, lay low, like being fast-tracked into a class with noble brats and aspiring guild heirs. In the cafeteria, Theo slid into the seat across from me with a massive grin. You have fans now. I stared at him. Someone made a GIF loop of your final sweep kick. It's captioned, Thrash Blade Assassin. Please tell me no one's printing shirts. No promises. Back at the forge, Rin nearly dropped a hammer on her own foot. You ranked up from a single duel. To be fair, I said, I did use 6 traps, a mid-fusion blade edge, and minor environmental sabotage. She squinted. Did you embed a spike in his spear grip? Yes. She grinned. Proud of you. Later that night, I finally opened the one message I've been putting off. The one from V. Nice footwork. We're still watching. But now it had changed. A second line had appeared. Come to the old bell tower. Midnight. No weapons needed. I debated deleting it. Instead, I showed up 15 minutes early. Because when someone knows how you fight, you don't keep them waiting. The bell tower was a leftover from the pre-dungeon era, long abandoned, half-cracked, and entirely off the school map. It hummed faintly with mana as I stepped inside. Old wards. Low-tier detection fields. Nothing lethal. Nothing obvious. Just old magic. Glad you came. The voice came from above. I looked up as a figure dropped from the upper walkway, landing lightly on the cracked stone. Young. Lean. Eyes like coiled wire in weather. She wore the academy uniform. Modified. Short sleeves, reinforced gloves, obsidian pin. Her badge didn't show a class. It showed a faction. Guild affiliation. Obsidian Vale. Observation Division. You're V, I said. Vel. She stepped closer. I'm the scout assigned to monitor non-linear growth patterns. You hit 3 red flags in under a week, and you're running a trait that doesn't match any of our fusion theory templates. I raised an eyebrow. You're saying I broke your spreadsheets? She smiled faintly. Shattered. So I want to make you an offer. She reached in her coat and tossed me a badge. Black steel, veined with silver. No name, just the symbol, a gear inside an eye. Candidate invite, Obsidian Vale, Trial Observer Path. Join our hidden program. Access to off-record dungeons. Tech-level fusion labs. Restricted scrolls. Why me? Because you're building. Most people follow class presets. You're inventing one. I turned the badge over. This wasn't just a club. It was a door. A system-recognized door. And once I stepped through, there was no going back. I looked up. Can I say no? You can, Vel said. But if you don't accept it, someone else will. She turned to leave. Your trade isn't just a fluke, Ray. It's a crack in the system. The kind people either seal. She looked back over her shoulder. Or walk through. Then she vanished. I stood there for a long time, badge still in my hand. The system pinged softly. Invitation. Pending. Time limit to accept. 72 hours. I'd like to say I spent the day soul-searching over Vel's offer. But really, I spent most of it staring at a gear-shaped badge while eating cold bread and trying not to panic. Because joining a hidden guild faction that studies non-linear power growth isn't something you undecide. Especially when they basically admit they're watching you to see if you break the world. 72 hours. I muttered, flipping the badge in my hand. It pulsed faintly with system-binding magic. Not a seal, but close. If I accepted it, it would mark me permanently. Access, clearance, visibility, which meant I'd stop being the underdog and start being a target. I tried focusing on something simple. I headed toward the outer market. The part of the city where storefronts leaned like they were trying to escape taxes and names like magical bargains and slightly exploding trinkets were considered respectable. I didn't come here often. Too loud, too weird, too many enchanted chickens. But I'd heard whispers about a trader who dealt in fusion-stained artifacts. Not enchanted, not forged, just changed, permanently warped by traits like mine. I had to see it. I found a shop tucked between a charm repair stall and a scroll vendor's screaming cat. No name on the door, just a sign that said, junked and justified by appointment or instinct. Well, I had plenty of instinct. I stepped inside. The interior was dim, lit by lanterns that flickered in 7 colors at once. The shelves were packed, not organized, overflowing with warped hilts, hollow shards, cracked core fragments, and things I couldn't even identify. Behind the counter sat a woman, or maybe a legend in disguise. White hair in a tight braid, goggles pushed up on her forehead, one mechanical glove, etched with fusion glyphs, and an expression that said she already knew why I was here. You're the kid with the chair dagger, she said. I blinked. It was effective. I didn't say it wasn't. She gestured to a back table, where a glass case hummed softly with mana suppression runes. Inside, a blade fragment. Black, wound-like, alive. My trait reacted the second I stepped closer, buzzing low in my chest, like a key approaching the right lock. Warning. Unstable fusion core detected. Status forbidden. Trait compatibility. For percent, growing. I froze. What is that? I asked. The woman didn't look up. A mistake, she said, and a promise. Someone tried to fuse a memory crystal, a cursed oath seal, and a living essence shard. Why? To cheat evolution. The air went still. It didn't work. Oh, it worked. Once. Then the blade woke up. It started eating passives. It what? Any skill it touched, it learned. Mimicked. Absorbed. She met my eyes. It's like you, kid. Just hungrier. I stepped back. Fast. The case pulsed faintly. It didn't reach for me, but it knew I was there. It wanted to be part of something again. Why show me this? I asked. Because if you're going to keep pushing fusion beyond its rules, she said, you deserve to know where the cliff ends. I left the shop quiet. No new gear. No new scrolls. Just questions. And one more unexpected twist. When I returned to the orphanage gates later that night, I heard a familiar voice by the steps. Still showing up late, Ray. I turned. There stood 10, one of the older kids who used to live here with me. Left 3 years ago to become an adventurer in the eastern districts. He was taller now. Older. Sharper. Wearing a light guild cloak I didn't recognize. He held a wrapped package under one arm and wore a neutral smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. I heard your name in a dual thread, he said. Didn't believe it until I saw the footage. I crossed my arms. You came all this way to reminisce. No, he said, stepping forward. I came to deliver something. He handed me the package. I opened it. Inside, a fusion shard I hadn't seen in years. Scorched steel. My first ever failed attempt. I thought it was lost. You kept this. Tin nodded. and someone else kept tabs on you. He glanced behind him, toward the city skyline. Whatever you're caught up in, Ray, it's bigger than a rank or a faction. Don't let them box you in. Then he left. No explanations. No contact scroll. Just a warning. And the past, finally catching up. I returned to my room, turned the badge over one more time. 3 words echoed in my head. Build your path. I didn't sleep. And when dawn broke, I tapped the badge. Accepted. Obsidian Veil. Trial Observer Track. Initiated. Welcome, Candidate Arkwright. Eyes are now upon you. You'd think joining a secret faction within the Academy would come with ceremony, or at least a fancy cloak. Instead, I got a 3-line system prompt and a nondescript location scrawled in glowing script across my scroll. Obsidian Veil Orientation. Location. Lower Library, subsection 9R. Entry code, Whispercraft. Arrival time, discretionary. First test begins on entry. Discretionary is code for we're watching to see if you show up on your own. Naturally, I went early. Subsection 9R wasn't a classroom. It wasn't even technically part of the registered library system. I had to find a stairwell hidden behind a moving bookshelf labeled Dry Storage, Mythical, and recite the passcode to a crystal that snorted at me. Yes, snorted. The wall slid open anyway. Beyond it, a descending ramp lit with hanging lanterns and reinforced with spell-threaded roots. Like someone buried a whole research wing underground and told no one. I stepped inside. Vel was waiting. Same dark coat. Same neutral tone. Welcome to the Observer Track, she said. You passed the first test. Which was? You came alone. She led me into a circular chamber. The walls were lined with black glass panels, display surfaces, mana readings, flickering maps. In the center sat a round table with only 2 chairs. She tossed me a scroll. Veil Trial Number 001. Observation Simulation. Objective. Observe and analyze a target in motion. Conditions. Do not interfere. Field. Simulated Encounter Room. Room 4C. Additional. You are not the only observer. Wait, you're making us spy on each other? I asked. Vel smiled. It's not spying. It's recognition. The simulation room was shaped like an arena, but smaller, cramped, twisting terrain like alleyways in a dungeon undercity. One figure already moved through it. Light steps, controlled posture, long coat stitched with memory thread embroidery. I tapped the viewing interface. Candidate, Lyra Anvil. Fusion type, persona mimicry. Core trait, echo channeling. Stat focus, INT/DX/LUK. She wasn't using weapons. She was using movements, dodging simulated blades not with speed, but with imitated rhythm. Her body shifted styles every few seconds, first like a sword fighter, then like a monk, then like a shield bearer. Her fusions weren't with objects. They were with patterns. I stared, fascinated. She flowed like water around each strike, syncing to combat styles the way a musician mirrors sound. A line of text pulsed on my viewing crystal. Make a judgment. That was the test. Vel wasn't asking for admiration. She wanted my read. Strengths, weaknesses, openings. I took a breath and began writing. Observation report. Candidate Lyra Anvil. Strengths. Style replication allows her to predict technique flow. High adaptability in confined terrain. Fusion-enhanced movement synchronizes with target aggression. INT-based movement, reading equals high dodge consistency. Weaknesses. Over-reliant on opponent initiative. Delayed transitions leave 0.2 second vulnerability. No independent kill strategy. Counterplay only. If baited into incorrect mimicry, rhythm collapses. Suggested disruption. Erratic movement. Faint chain patterns. Low-end fusion misreads. Combine equipment noise effects to break her visual rhythm. I submitted it. Vel nodded. Efficient. Then the room shifted. The simulation ended, and Lyra herself stepped through the far door. Oh, good. So much for discretion. She had short silver hair, sharp eyes, and a gaze that pinned me like I just insulted her favorite skill scroll. You're Ray Arkwright, she said, no greeting. Fusion-based trap layering and mid-combat refusion user. Efficiency rating, 92%. Dual record. 1 public win, 0 official losses. I see you've done your homework. I always do. She folded her arms. You analyzed me faster than the instructors did. And I don't like being read like a spell book. They'll cut in. Get used to it. You're both on the same track now. You'll train together. Observe together. Spar eventually. Lyra didn't look thrilled, but neither was I, because while she didn't fight with weapons, she was starting to treat me like one, and not in a friendly way. Later, as I left the simulation hall, I opened my updated status tab. Status, Ray Arkwright. Observer track, initiated. Observation trial 001, passed. Veil candidate rank, 5th. Observer note added. Cognitive integration rating, high. Message received. From Lyra Envil. Next time, I'll be watching you. Great. Now I had a rival, and she was smarter, faster, and probably better at remembering birthdays. This was going to be fun. I don't know who thought it was a good idea to pair the world's most calculating mimic with a guy who fights with duct tape and improvised explosions. But here we were. Veil Simulation Chamber 4A. 2 observer candidates. 1 test. Team Fusion Simulation Trial. Begin. Objective. Survive 5 waves. Bonus. No overlap damage. Difficulty scaling. Adaptive. Penalty for failure. Rank suspension asterisk. Fantastic. Nothing says bonding exercise like being one misstep away from probation. Lyra stood across from me at the edge of the circular chamber, arms folded, eyes narrowed. Do not get in my rhythm, she said. You have rhythm. She shot me a look that could curdle mana. Stick to mid-range. I'll handle intercepts and bait strikes. I'm a trap layer. I don't do mid-range. Then don't misfire. Well, if someone doesn't bait a monster into my blast radius. Wave 1 incoming. Threat level, D. Saved by the system bell. Sort of. For simulated goblins, spawned in, weapons drawn. Fast movers. Basic formation. Lyra moved first. 1 blink, then a sweep into the closest one's path. Her stance shifted mid-step from counterblade to dual form axe mimic. I felt the air change around her. Her movements were flawless, like watching a technique scroll come alive. I, on the other hand, tossed a wire-fused trap in a goblin pack and kicked a loose gear fragment toward a root pillar. Improvised spring coil detonation. Knockback successful. Trap triggered. Net burst chain. 2 targets entangled. Lyra's rhythm faltered for a half-second. You could have warned me. You could have dodged left instead of posing. Bonus objective failed. Overlap damage incurred. Oops. A flicker of light pulsed on her mimic bands. System sync cuffs that displayed coordination faults. Her look said, I will end you. By wave 2, it got worse. Wave 3, catastrophic. We weren't losing, technically, just tripping over each other's skill activations, trap zones, and kill timing like 2 people trying to write the same sentence on different pages. Lyra, precise counters, perfect flow, single blade tempo. Me, boots, blade, distraction spark bombs, and exactly 1 functional knee slide. By wave 4, we were both panting and glaring. You're unpredictable, she snapped. You're too predictable. I calculate openings. I create them. You're inefficient. You're stuck in scroll mode. We both raised weapons. Neither of us moved. Then the chamber trembled. Wave 5 incoming. Entity. Simulated Hydra spawn. Multi-target aggressor. Threat level, C+. The 3-headed monstrosity burst from the arena floor. Acid breath steaming from its open maws. I stared at it. Then at Lyra. I have a very dumb idea, I said. She hesitated. Then, how dumb? Mid-fusion rebound launch into a spike trap behind a fake opening. That is catastrophically dumb, but it'll work. She exhaled. Fine, I'll buy you 6 seconds. The moment she moved, something changed. Not her form, not her style, her timing. She shifted tempo to mine, slightly off rhythm, looser footing, but just enough to keep the enemy's attention flickering. And that was all I needed. Fusion activated. Blade hook core plus pressure buckle plus spike plate fragment. Result. Ram coil flare anchor. Tier C. Passive. Launches user forward plus stagger burst on landing. SBP gained. Plus 0.7 AGI plus 0.4 STR. I loaded the trap. Ran straight to the Hydra. Triggered it. Launched over 1 snapping head. Flipped mid-air. And jammed the blade into its spine. Critical hit. Flare pulse triggered. Hydra staggered. Finishing window open. Lyra blurred beneath me, form shifting to dual dagger monk mimic, and tore through all 3 necks with exact strike points. Silence. Then the system chimed. Wave cleared. Trial complete. Team grade. A-, coordination penalty. Individual sync increase. Plus 8%. Note. Combat synergy detected. Potential compatibility developing. We stood there, breathing hard, staring at the flickering corpse of a monster that didn't even exist. You adapted, she said quiet. You trusted me. We'll call a truce. Later, back in the observation chamber, Vel gave a rare nod. You're polar opposites, but you balanced your chaos. I raised an eyebrow. So we passed. No, she said, smirking. You barely survived. But for a first attempt. She handed each of us a sealed envelope. Next trial begins tomorrow. Real terrain, real threats, and no resets. The instructions were simple. Too simple. Veil Trial 002. Recovery Mission. Observer Pair Deployment. Objective. Retrieve core fragment from Collapse Zone 3X of the Blackroot Maze. Conditions. Hazard level. Unmapped. Support. None. Observer Pair. Ray Arkwright and Lyra Envil. Status. Active asterisk. When a secret faction says, unmapped hazard, that's code for, we have no idea what's down there, but we'd love to find out using you. And lucky me, I was suddenly them. We descended through a sealed side tunnel behind the east wing of the Academy's oldest ruins. A lift powered by crystal rails groaned the entire way down, like it knew we were making a mistake. Lyra stood beside me in silence, already geared and calm. Still think I'm inefficient? I asked. She didn't look at me. You're efficient like a storm. Destructive, imprecise, occasionally useful. I'll take that as a compliment. You shouldn't. When the doors opened, stale air hit us like a wall. Blackroot Maze wasn't like standard dungeons. It was old, pre-system. A naturally formed cavern complex twisted by time, magic, and neglect. The entry corridor was jagged, stone warped into roots and webbing. Old wards flickering like they were trying to die in peace. It's supposed to be dead down here, I said. Then why do I hear breathing? Lyra asked. I froze. Yeah, there it was. Something was breathing. Slow, deep, hidden beyond the dark. We moved carefully, following the pulsing signal on Lyra's reader crystal, at least until the floor gave out. Environmental hazard. Triggered. Trapdoor collapse. Depth fall. 22 meters. We landed hard. Lyra rolled gracefully. I hit a rock. Very professionally. We landed in what looked like a burial chamber. Stone pillars carved with runes. Shattered weapons half fused to the floor. I knelt, touching one of them. It buzzed at my fingers. Warning. Fusion scar detected. Status. Dormant. Age. Unknown. Trait. Echo present. This whole room. I whispered. It's fused. Not just fused, Lyra said. Twisted. Look. In the center of the room was a pedestal. And atop it, a crystal. Small. Pale blue. Flickering. The retrieval target. I took a step forward. The crystal pulsed. And then the chamber shook. A stone slab shattered against the far wall as a giant hand punched through it. Not stone. Not metal. Something between. Smooth like obsidian. Cracked like dry earth. Infused with glowing veins of something else. Then the rest of it pulled free. Entity detected. Classification. Relic Guardian. Rank. Unknown. Status. Dormant awakening interrupted. Affinity detected. Fusion trait resonance. High. Reaction. Hostile asterisk. It was 9 feet tall. Headless. Armored in fractured stone fused with broken weapons. And it turned, not toward the crystal, but toward me. I didn't hesitate. I triggered my quick fuse cuff, slapped together a defensive combo. Fusion. Repulsion plate plus brace guard plus spike snap coil. Result. Brace burst shield. Tier D+. Passive. Auto block first impact. On break. Releases 3M knockback pulse. SBP gained. Plus 0.4 STR, plus 0.3 VIT. I slid the shield onto my arm and raised it. Just in time to block a strike that cracked the air. It hurt. The force sent me flying into the wall. Ray! Lyra shouted, drawing her mimic bands into blade form. The creature paused, again locking on me, ignoring her completely. Aggression priority. Fusion core detected. Fusion type. Manual imprint. Rejection instinct triggered. It's reacting to me. I groaned. Why? I looked at the glowing lines across its arms. Because my trait is what broke it in the first place. Lyra moved fast, diving behind it, slicing at the joints. Her mimicry danced between sword and spear, but the creature didn't flinch, didn't turn. Its attention was mine. Then we fight it together, she said, sliding beside me. I bait. You blast. No, I said, eyes locking on the pattern in its chest. I can end this. I gritted my teeth, dropped my last fusion trigger into my palm, and reached out toward one of the fractured pillars. The same material, same scar. Emergency fusion, unstable, 67% sync. Target, relic shard plus energy core fragment plus memory coil. Result, reverb fong spike, tier C+. Limited use, 1x activation. Passive, on contact with corrupted fusion scars, triggers core feedback asterisk. I sprinted forward. The guardian raised its arm. Lyra called my name. I jammed the spike into its chest and activated it. Pulse. Not light. Not sound. Memory. Feedback triggered. Core sync. 41%. Target relic. Overload detected. Status. Shut down. Temporal seal engaged asterisk. The guardian froze mid-swing. Then cracked. Then fell apart into quiet dust. Silence. Breathless. Shaking. The crystal floated off its pedestal, gently hovering into my hand like it had been waiting. Objective complete. Return recommended. Lyra stared at the wreckage. Then at me. That wasn't on the brief. No, I said softly. It was personal. Later, as we rose back up the lift, the system pinged in my vision. Veil Trial 002. Success. Rank increase. Candidate number 3. Observer note. Dangerous compatibility. Needs control. Bonus. Unknown entity reaction logged. And below that, a blinking message. You're not the first awake one, Ray. When you survive a fight with a fusion-corrupted giant that shouldn't even exist, you expect at least a nap. I got an inbox full of red flag warnings and a visit from my faction handler, which, let me tell you, is not the same thing. Vel met me in the Veil's underground chamber, arms crossed, expression sharper than usual. You triggered a dormant guardian, she said. Classified relic. One we didn't know was still active. It attacked me, because your trait resonated with it. She tossed a mana record crystal onto the table. It glowed faintly, displaying a rotating symbol burned into the wreckage we left behind. I'd seen it once before, in a forbidden scroll Rin found buried beneath an abandoned forge. A fusion emblem inside a spiraling rune. Half-tech, half-blood. Do you know what this is? Vel asked. No, I said honestly. But it knew me. She nodded. That's because your trait doesn't come from random roll assignment like most civilians. I blinked. What? She activated the wall behind her. A projection lit up. Pages from some old war report, blurred names, black lines. Project Origin. Fusion candidate trials. Status. Terminated. Survivors. 3. Unregistered. Known anomalies. Trait drift / memory bleed / reconstructive sync patterns. You weren't born with a trait, Vel said. You were exposed. Young. Before the registry system was finalized. I took a step back. You're saying I'm some kind of experiment. You're saying it, not me. She paused. But you're not the only one. She handed me a sealed folder. Inside, a photo. Black and white. 3 kids. Standing in front of a collapsed gate. One of them had eyes like mine. Who is this? I asked. Classified, she said. Until trial 3. I stared at the photo. One thing was clear. Whoever they were, they'd been through the same fire. And one of them, maybe more, was still alive. Later that day, I tried to visit Rin. Forge, locked. Note on the door. Out for delivery. Don't blow up the forge. Again, I considered writing, you were right about the system on the door, but figured she'd know already. So I wandered instead. Back alleys. Dusty edges of the academy. Searching for anything that felt normal. And that's when it happened. A trap went off. Not mine. Warning. Ambush triggered. Source. Tier D Fusion Scatternet. Effect. Movement restriction. 10 seconds. I hit the ground as wire threads wrapped around my arms and legs, anchored to the alley wall. A figure stepped out of the shadows. Tall, veil coat, face hidden behind a mimic mask shaped like a cracked porcelain smile. "I don't like anomalies," they said. "Then you're really gonna hate what happens next," I muttered. I flexed my cuff, triggering an emergency shatter plate stored on my boot. Manual trigger, fragment burst activated. Status, trap integrity compromised. Constraint, lifted. I rolled, slashed the remaining wires. Came up with a blade in hand. The masked figure lunged, fast, clean, aim at my shoulder. They didn't go for the kill. This was a message. I parried low, flipped my boot dagger up, and swept their legs out. Counter successful, dual mode rejected. Unauthorized combat, report filed. The figure skidded back and vanished with a blink step. Coward. But not before they left a message on the alley wall, burned in faint mana ink. Observer slots are limited. Stay in your lane. I returned to my room late, tired, bruised, and more pissed than paranoid. I stared at the picture from Vel's file. 3 kids, one of them alive, maybe watching. And now, I was being hunted before I'd even hit evolution level. I opened my fusion journal, scribbled a new section. Adaptive threat protocols. Prepare counter traps for mimic class aggressors. Develop emergency fusion trigger gloves. Build contingency for trait echo backlash. This wasn't just about fighting monsters anymore. It was about surviving people who knew what I was. People who wanted to erase me before I could ask why. I should have hit level 10 by now. Should have. I'd cleared 2 trials, dropped a fusion warp relic guardian, survived a dungeon collapse, and defended myself from a massed assassination attempt. But when I checked my system again that morning, level 9, EXP, 99.8%, status, pending advancement, processing, asterisk, processing, still, which, for the record, is not normal. Normally, hitting 100% EXP sends a wave through your system. Class screen opens. Evolution trial appears. Your whole body buzzes with that pre-growth surge of mana. I didn't get that. Just a spinning circle in the corner of my scroll. Like the system was stalling, or buffering, or being tampered with. I visited the Academy's diagnostics terminal, buried in the second-floor support office. Students almost never used it unless their scroll got corrupted. The clerk there was half asleep when I walked in. "Name," he mumbled. "Arkwright. Ray." He typed a few commands, paused, frowned. "Your progression tag is fragmented. Excuse me." He turned the screen toward me. Sure enough, my leveling log had a giant gray lock icon over it. System error code, trroot/seal, external override. Looks like someone installed a soft cap override. I didn't. No, but someone above you did. He squinted, then blinked. "Wait, you're part of the Veil program, aren't you?" I didn't answer. He lowered his voice. "Then you didn't hear this from me. But someone filed a containment seal on your trait classification." I stared at the screen. "What?" "I don't know, but was signed by a Tier 1 administrator." I left before he could say more, because if someone that high up was freezing my progress, then they weren't afraid of me evolving. They were afraid of what I might become once I do. I hit the back alleys again, frustrated and pacing. I needed that evolution, not just for power, but to advance my class, to start building the real frameworks, techniques, gear syncing, stat tree customization. Without that, I was stuck. Then something happened. A ping. Soft, but clear. Unauthorized override detected. Source. Proximity fusion. Inverted trace asterisk. Someone nearby had a fusion-based blocker. Someone was actively jamming my system from within detection range. I slipped behind a broken fountain, drew my weakest blade, and let my trait pulse outward. Subtle. Controlled. Searching for echoes. And there it was. A faint signature, not 30 feet away, masked under a stealth weave. I followed it. Through a tight alley. Past a drain pipe. And there he stood. Male. Student uniform. Tall, wiry. Gloves marked with mana channel threading. A patch over his left sleeve that didn't belong to any school division. He turned as I approached. "Arkwright," he said, voice calm. "You're not supposed to be here." "Funny," I replied. I was just thinking the same thing. He didn't reach for a weapon. He didn't need to. Instead, he activated something on his wristband. Suppression field active. EXP gain. Halted. Target. Trait signature. Ray Arkwright. Match confirmed. You're trying to block my evolution, I said flatly. Correction, he replied. I've been instructed to delay it until the system is ready to contain it. By who? He smiled. You'll know when they let you. Then he vanished. Not blinked. Deleted. Like a temporary system shell. A projection. A puppet. I stood in the alley, the silence pressing against me like water. This wasn't just interference. It was management. The system, or someone with admin-level access, was tracking my every gain. And they weren't trying to kill me. They were trying to slow me down. By time. For what? I didn't know. Yet. Back in my room, I stared at the floating status screen. Level 9. Still. Evolution lock pending removal. Access key required. Condition. Fusion trait overclock trigger or administrative override. Overclock. Now that I could work with. I flipped to a clean page in my Fusion journal and wrote 3 words across the top. Force the system. Time to get creative. If they wouldn't let me level up, then I'd make them evolve to keep up. Let's get one thing straight. You're not supposed to force evolution. The system doesn't like it. The code doesn't trust it. And every adventurer handbook says the same thing. Level naturally. Let the system guide you. But I don't trust systems that glitch when I grow too fast. So I'm building a workaround. No, not a workaround. A weapon. I called it the Overclock Blade Project. Because if they were going to throttle my level progression behind a firewall, I was going to melt it. The idea was simple. In theory, combine a fusion core with too many layered triggers. Force a trait sync overload. Convert the mana spike into system strain. Force the level up event through pressure. Also known as, make something so unstable that the system panics and lets you evolve to stop it from exploding. Rin would call it completely suicidal. I call it Tuesday. The build required components I didn't technically have access to. So I made a list. Parts needed for overclock fusion. Unbound fusion core. Tier C+. Borrowed from an abandoned veil crate. Memory thread handle base. Courtesy of the Blackroot Maze remnants. Elemental overload crystal. Traded a rare poison fong to a junk vendor who called me Death Boy. Adaptive blade casing. Salvage from an old training sword I hadn't used since level 2. Shock loop. Bootleg component Rin definitely didn't approve. And last, a trigger. Something to ignite the whole mess. I chose a relic spark fuse. The same kind used to restart old dungeon cores. Yeah, that dangerous. I built it in the dead of night in Rin's forge, while she was gone delivering commissions. She'd kill me if she saw this. It wasn't clean. It wasn't safe. It was a jagged mess of raw mana, unstable threading, and a handle that hummed with warning runes. But worked. Kind of. Overclock fusion initiated. Fusion. Core plus casing plus crystal plus memory thread plus spark fuse. Result. Overclock blade. Variant 1. Unstable. Tier very happy face asterisk. Effect. When activated, forcibly drains ambient mana and redirects it into the user's trait signature. Drawback. Causes system instability. May trigger forced evolution. May also cause temporary trait failure. SBP gained. Plus 1.5 STR, plus 0.9 DX, plus 1.1 INT, plus 1.3 VIT. The concern me. A lot. But curiosity beat caution. Again. So I took the blade, stepped outside the forge, and jammed it into the mana-soaked cobblestone of the Academy's outer training field. The weapon vibrated, then screamed. Not with sound. With pressure. Warning. Mana surge detected. Trait sync. 127%. Above safe threshold. Stability. Degrading rapidly. System error. Trait block encountered. Bypassing. The ground cracked. The air split. The sky above shimmered like someone struck a bell made of stars. Force evolution triggered. Class level. 10 upgrade unlocked. Accessing hybrid trait branch. Processing. My vision went white. And suddenly, I was somewhere else. Not physically. System space. My own. Floating screens surrounded me, displaying every scrap of data about me. My fights. My fusions. My traps. My decisions. My failures. My trait, spinning in the center like a core. Unstable, hungry, growing. Then came the prompt. Class evolution. Initiated. Base class. Basic swordsman. Trait detected. Equipment fusion, freeform variant. System note. Hybrid branching engaged. Choose one path asterisk. 1. Scrap architect. Build structures and devices on the battlefield from fuse gear. Specializes in trap networks, turrets, and weapon constructs. 2. Adaptive blade caller. Fuses mid-fight to create changing weapons. Specializes in fluid combat, combo adaptation, and in-combat evolution. 3. Relic echo. Draws on the memories of gear. Uses fusion to remember skills and abilities locked in forgotten weapons. Unpredictable. Unstable. Highly potent. 3 paths. Oh mine. No guidebooks. No teacher scrolls. Just choice. And a single whisper, faint in my head, not system-bound. Choose wrong, and you'll be easy to control. It wasn't my voice. I chose. Evolution confirmed. Class upgraded. Adaptive blade caller. Passive gained. Dynamic slot shift. Fuse or unfuse one item per 5 seconds in combat. Skill unlocked. Reactive phase bind. Rank F. Copies last used technique into next fusion. Stat bonuses applied. EXP unlocked. Level 10. Trait. Unstable. Stabilizing asterisk. I gasped and dropped to one knee. Real-world pressure returning like a tidal wave. The overclock blade crumbled. Burnout. But my scroll buzzed softly. And the system spoke one final line. You were not meant to evolve this way. But now you have. When I woke up the next morning, I expected pain. What I didn't expect was clarity. My limbs didn't ache. My mana didn't wobble. The pressure in my skull, the one I've been carrying like a second heartbeat ever since I hit level 9, was gone. What replaced it? A hum. Steady. Low. Like my body was syncing with something deeper than the system. Status. Updated. Class. Adaptive blade caller. Uncommon hybrid path. Trait. Equipment fusion. Freeform variant. Passive gained. Dynamic slot shift F. Fuse or unfuse one item every 5 seconds during combat. No cooldown outside combat. Skill gained. Reactive phase bind F. Temporarily stores the last weapon or skill used. Next fusion includes its effect for 10 seconds. Stat increase. STR +2, AGI +3, Dex +2, and +1, Luck +1. SBP sync efficiency increased. +15%. I flexed my fingers and felt the shift. It wasn't like getting stronger. It was like my body had stopped fighting itself. My trait wasn't just layered on top of me anymore. It was me. Naturally, Vel showed up 30 minutes later, right as I was trying to eat. She stood in the doorway of the forge like a thundercloud wearing boots. You leveled. Hi, Vel. Yes, I'd offer you breakfast, but you don't look like you're here for toast. She didn't smile, didn't move, just tossed a sealed scroll onto the table. Do you know what that is? I glanced at the seal. Not Academy, not Vale. System Administrator Protocol, Class Observation Tag. Is that what it looks like? It's a full override notice. You bypassed the leveling lock, triggered an unregistered evolution path, and forced the system to recognize a class branch that wasn't supposed to exist. Wasn't supposed to, because it's not on the list. Ray, your class is a broken tree. The moment you hit level 10, the system started rewriting itself around you. Pause, which means now they know. She paced once, then twice, like her boots were trying to crush the floor into obedience. You're lucky the Veil shielded your combat data. Otherwise, the entire council would be fighting over your analysis already. I try to keep it light. So what you're saying is, I'm special. What I'm saying, she said flatly, is that you've now joined the extremely short list of people whose class tree is untracked. She handed me a small crystal badge, different from my Veil ID. This one was a deep red, laced with silver, shaped like a split blade. Observer class. Unchained tier. Monitoring initiated. From this point forward, Vel said, every fight you enter is a case study. Every win, a theory. Every loss, a risk. I nodded, swallowing the weight of that. Then I better make them count. Later that day, I tested the class properly for the first time. Training chamber. Dummies. No rules. I loaded my inventory with junk. Not even good gear. Just scraps. A snapped short sword. A broken gear hammer. One enchanted fork. Fused it for science. Don't judge me. I activated dynamic slot shift. The system opened a wheel in my vision, flickering options of gear I tagged. Selected. Iron fracture Fong plus crack short blade grip. Result. Adaptive razor curve. Tier D+. Passive. Plus 10% crit against unarmored foes. Bind duration. 10 seconds. Next slot swap. Ready in 5s. I spun. Slashed through 2 dummies. Then swapped again mid-motion. Selected. Gear hammerhead plus braced hook tip. Result. Coil breaker blunt edge. Tier C. Momentum boosted. Passive. Plus 20% knockback on first strike. Phase bind triggered. Stored technique. Spiral feint asterisk. I hit the 3rd dummy with a sweeping fake, then followed through with a real blow that sent it flying into the wall. The screen flashed. Skill sync successful. Reactive phase bind. Level up. E rank. I laughed. Actually laughed. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't just adapting to the system. I was making it adapt to me. Then came the ping. A message from an address I didn't recognize. No sender. Just a symbol. A spiral. Inside a gear. You're not the only one off the map. Meet me. Subsector 13R. Midnight. Bring your best fusion. Or don't come at all. Midnight. Subsector 13R. The part of the Academy's foundation that everyone pretends doesn't exist. I passed 3 collapsed stairwells, 1 defunct mana elevator, and at least 1 very confused spectral janitor muttering something about phantom mob duty. Eventually, I reached the door. Rust red. Shaped like a gear, split down the center. No lock. No welcome. Just a faint glow, pulsing in time with my heartbeat. I pushed it open and walked into the dark. The chamber inside wasn't abandoned. It was sealed. Black stone walls. 6 floating fusion cores in stasis mode. Symbols scratched across the floor in patterns that weren't standard runes, but old ones. Experimental ones. A training circle was carved dead center, and in it stood a girl. Mid-teens. Pale coat. Stitched from 3 different uniforms. Short cropped dark hair. Black gloves, etched with fusion scars. She turned as I entered. I was starting to think you'd flinch, she said. Sorry. Got lost. Took a wrong turn at the spooky hallway with the whispering moss. She cracked a smile. Ray Arkwright. Adaptive blade collar. Forced evolution. And you are. People like us don't get names, she said. But you can call me Kira. Kira drew her weapon. No steel. No blade. Just a handle that split in 3 directions, each attached to a different glowing fusion core. Trait detected. Multi-channel fuser. Illegal classification. Status. Expunged from public archive. Warning. This trait has been erased for instability and memory bleed risk. You have 3 cores, I said. She nodded. Each one's half broken, she said. Which means I can make things the system can't recognize fast enough to stop. She tapped her boot once against the edge of the circle. Challenge registered. Unofficial duel initiated. Combat type. Trial clash. Rules. No kills. No resets. System logging disabled. Stakes. Winner takes the loser's active fusion memory. I blinked. You're going for memory steals? That's a high-risk rule. It's the only way to learn when you're off the map. She raised her weapon. Come on then, blade caller. Let's see what happens when a system breaker meets a system burner. I didn't waste time. Switched loadouts instantly. Slot shift activated. Fusion. Serrated coil Fong plus weighted hook. Result. Snap torque blade. Tier C. Passive. Lacerate chance plus grab and twist throw function. I darted left. She flicked her wrist. One of her cores snapped into place. The weapon in her hand reshaped in real time. Fusion type. Cascade edge. Tier C+. Unregistered. Effect. Each parry increases following strike speed by 5% asterisk. Our blades clashed. Sparks flew. She was fast, but not faster than me. What made her dangerous was reactivity. Every time I shifted tempo, she matched it. Not mimic like Lyra, but overclocked. She wasn't just responding. She was preempting. Your style's like mine, I muttered, rolling under a wide strike and reversing grip. No, she said, course swapping again mid-spin. Mine's what happens when they don't stop you. Reactive phase bind, activated. Stored, rotating Fong thrust. Copied into next fusion asterisk. I broke off and threw a dagger across the chamber. Not to hit, but to mislead. She flicked it aside, and that was the opening. Slot shift. Activated. Fusion. Crack Lancer grip plus dagger hilt plus hook fragment. Result. Piercing spiral blade, tier C. Phase bound. Rotating Fong, thrust applied. I lunged. Straight through her guard. Stopped just short of hitting flesh. A hair's width away. Kira froze. Then grinned. The system pinged. Duel concluded. Winner, Ray Arkwright. Reward. +1 fusion memory acquired. Cascade Edge blueprint unlocked. Trait sync. Slight overlap detected. Classification. Compatible instability. She lowered her weapon, shaking her hand out like her nerves had been run through static. Well, damn, she muttered. You were the real thing. Thanks, I said. You're not bad either. For someone technically erased from existence. Kira smirked. Get used to that phrase. We're all ghosts down here. She walked toward the door, but stopped at the threshold. They're going to come after you harder now. You force an upgrade. I noticed. Let me know when you're ready to really step off the path. And then she was gone. I stood in the dark room for a long time, just breathing. Then opened my scroll. New fusion memory unlocked. Cascade Edge. Effect. Stackable momentum bonus on chain defense. Status. Syncing. Adapted to Blade Caller class asterisk. I grinned, because for the first time, I wasn't just reacting to the system anymore. I was harvesting it. There are 3 things they don't tell you about the wild circuit until you're already in it. 1. It's not a dungeon. 2. It's not a city. 3. It's alive. The air hums like it's remembering everything that ever died in it. And judging by the way even birds avoid flying overhead, it hasn't forgotten. Veil, Trial 003. Field deployment. Live environment. The wild circuit. Objective. Investigate signal anomalies from unstable fusion sites. Conditions. Full system sync required. Support. 1 Veil partner assigned. Secondary objective. Survive. Asterisk. So yeah, comforting. My assigned transport. A repurposed, rune-bound skiff. Hovered over the outer ridge of the city before skimming across broken terrain. Cracked blackstone. Ruined outposts. Occasional mana storms flickering like the sky was glitching. Sitting across from me, arms crossed, looking very not thrilled. Lyra, you again, I said because someone had to. I was told I had a choice, she muttered. I chose no. They sent me anyway. Guess we're both lucky. She didn't laugh. Figures. The skiff dropped us off at the edge of a fractured leyline canyon. The ground crackled with old mana damage, and the air carried that weird static smell you only get when magic doesn't know what decade it's in. Entering zone. Circuit drift, unstable fusion territory. Threat rating, variable. Warning, system effects may fluctuate asterisk. Define fluctuate, I muttered. The system politely did not reply. We descended into the zone on foot. Lyra took point, scanning for movement. I trailed, placing temporary sensor spikes that hummed whenever fusion residue was nearby. The first hour was quiet. Too quiet. Then something chirped. Not an animal. One of my traps. Fusion residue detected. Source. Recent. Location. 37 meters north. Note. Residue is active. Asterisk. We crept forward. And found it. A body. Or what was left of one. Melted armor. A twisted core. Half of a gauntlet fused to the ground like it was trying to crawl away. The center of his chest glowed faintly. Still leaking power. Lyra cursed softly. He was overwritten. I frowned. You mean fuse in his gear? No. With it. She knelt, tapped the core. Warning. Fusion catastrophe signature. Artifact class. Status. Instability rating. B. Signal matches pre-Veil prototype series. Category. Echo weaponization. Asterisk. My spine went cold. Echo weaponization. That was the same tag that came up on Kira's weapon. That meant signal surge detected. Multiple hostiles incoming. And then the canyon howled. 3 figures sprinted over the ridge. Not monsters. Not adventurers. Runners. Illegal fusion scavengers. Eyes glowing. Weapons stitched together from things that shouldn't work. One had a jagged sword fused with bone and chain. Another had no visible weapon, just arms wrapped in burning script. And the leader? A girl in a red coat, coattails flaring behind her, one arm fused with what looked like a living engine core. She grinned. I knew someone would chase the signal. Lyra readied her mimicry bands. I locked in my loadout. Slot shift activated. Piercing hook blade plus snap coil. Result, Rift Piercer Fong. Tier C. Passive. Causes delay feedback in opponent's weapon on clash asterisk. I took point. Lyra flanked. The redcoat girl raised her fused engine arm, and the whole canyon shook. This wasn't a scavenger crew. This was a rogue unit, and they'd been waiting for someone like me. The girl in the red coat didn't bother with a speech. She just pointed her engine arm at us and snapped her fingers. The three runners moved like they'd rehearsed this 100 times. Lyra vanished in a blur, and I dove straight into the middle of it. Because sometimes the best trap is you. Slot shift activated. Fusion. Hook blade plus jagged coil spike. Result. Rift Piercer Fong. Tier C. Passive. Weapon clash disrupt. Causes short delay in enemies. Fused weapon reactivation asterisk. The first runner met me mid-lunge. His blade was a twisted mess of chain links and bone, with a snaking spine down the edge. I blocked with the Fong. Clang. His blade vibrated, reacting to the clash. Then it froze, mid-reset, exactly as planned. He blinked. I kicked him square in the chest and sent him skidding backward. Delay feedback successful. Time gained, 2.2 seconds. I used them. Behind me, Lyra danced through the second runner strikes, her mimicry bands flickering with stored motion as she countered with precision and flow. The runner fought like a berserker, flailing fists, burning script flaring with each swing. But Lyra didn't get hit. She read him and countered. A strike to the ribs, twist, elbow, parry. Then she vaulted over him and slammed him headfirst into the ground with a mimic throne suplex I didn't even know she could do. Show off. That just left the red-coated girl. She hadn't moved. Yet, I looked up just in time to see her engine arm snap open, steam whistling from the vents. She grinned, then launched, not just forward, through the air, a streak of heat and pressure. I blocked, barely. Brace burst shield, Tier D plus activated. First impact, absorbed. Overload triggered, knockback plus 3M burst asterisk. She tanked it, smiled through it. Her engine arm crackled. The fusion wasn't passive. It was alive. Fusion detected, unknown variant, echo injector arm. Function, momentum burst plus adaptive sync. Risk rating, A. User neural integration, asterisk. Oh great, she wasn't wielding a weapon. She was one. I rolled aside, activated phase bind. Reactive, phase bind triggered. Captured. Echo injector strike. LV1 variant, asterisk. The instant I felt the energy hit my trait, something twisted. Not painful, not wrong, just different. The phase bind pulsed harder than usual, then glitched. Warning, stored skill is forbidden. Trait sync unstable. Rewriting adaptive interface. Adapting anyway. Because of course it did. My blade shifted, flickered, then locked into a new form I didn't recognize. Fusion output. Rift burn injector, Tier B. Unstable. Passive. On direct impact. Applies instability echo. A short-term stun plus system lag asterisk. The redcoat runner's smile dropped just a bit. Good. I lunged. We collided in a storm of heat and shattered stone. She was fast. Not graceful like Lyra. Not unpredictable like me. Precise. Every movement designed to crash, break, reset, and do it again. But I'd seen her pattern now, so I waited for the opening. Blocked twice. Let her punch into my guard a third time. Then Phasebind copied her combo, and I reversed it. Mid-strike. Replayed her exact move back at her, using her own fusion signature. Instability echo applied. Target reaction time slowed. Course sync interrupted asterisk. She blinked, hesitated, and I slammed the rift burn injector into her shoulder. Boom. She hit the wall hard. Steam flared from her vents. And then her engine arm overloaded. She coughed once, smiled again, but this time I wasn't confident. You're like us, she said, slumped against the wall. But you don't know how deep it goes. I leveled my blade at her. Start talking. She didn't. She just tossed something at my feet before vanishing in a blink flare. A shard. Not from a weapon. From a person. Lyra picked it up, frowning. It's an echo imprint. From who? She turned it over. Someone registered as class. Null. We both stared at it. Then my system pinged. Memory imprint detected. Echo analysis stored. Access restricted by admin lock. Tier 0. Note: he's getting too close. Unknown sender. I opened my scroll. Looked at the map. The wild circuit was wide open now. No reset buttons. No veil shield. Just the real world. And the truth buried inside it. The echo shard was cold in my hand. Not temperature-wise, system cold. Like it didn't belong in the data. Like the moment I touched it, the class interface wanted to look away. Lyra stood across from me, arms crossed. We need to trace it. I nodded. The shard wasn't just debris. It was tagged with a signal, subtle, erratic, buried under so many encryption layers that even the Veil's tech hadn't flagged it. But my trait? It hummed like it remembered this kind of code. Which meant whatever we were chasing wasn't just old. It was familiar. Echo shard. Signal analysis in progress. Trace point identified. Buried fusion lab. Site designation. Black box null. Location: Sector 13W, Deep Circuit Ruins. Asterisk. The wild circuit's edge zones were weird. But 13W? That was worse. A dead zone. Long sealed by the Adventurers Guild. Supposedly swallowed by a mana quake 10 years ago. No one goes there, Lyra said. Not even SCAV teams. There's no loot. No spawns. Just static. Then why leave us a signal pointing there? She didn't answer. Didn't need to. We both knew. If someone wanted us dead, there were easier ways. This was a message. A dare. The path there was slow. Twisted. Half-crushed tunnels and collapsed ruins. We passed 3 more fusion scars in the stone. Gear melted in the floor. Walls warped like something lived inside the circuit, not around it. And then we found the lab. Or what was left of it. Black box null. Fusion testing facility. Status: condemned. Security tag: redacted. Entry warning: Tier 0 containment. Do not restore power asterisk. The door was sealed with 6 different layers of mana locks. And one line carved into the metal. This is where classes die. I stared at it, heart pounding. Lyra glanced at me. Still want to go in? No, I said. But I think we already have. Because the second I reached for the panel, the door opened. On its own. The air inside was dead. No sound. No lights. Just rows of broken test pods, shattered control panels, and dust that didn't even try to move. I stepped forward. My trait flared. Fusion echo detected. Memory signature confirmed. Playback unlocked. Asterisk. A ghost image shimmered to life. A boy, older than me by a few years, stood in a sealed room, wearing old combat gear, staring straight into a camera. Eyes hollow. Voice low. If you're seeing this, you found the part they buried. My name is Talon Reef. Class null. I wasn't supposed to survive. The system said I didn't qualify. No class path. No evolution tree. No future. So I made my own. The null class is what happens when you burn out the slot entirely. No guidance. No bindings. Just raw sync. He stepped closer. Looked directly into the projection field like he could see us. If you're here, you're like me. Or worse. Which means they'll come for you too. The echo cut out. And the room lit up. Lights flickered. Power surged. A console rebooted. Sparks flying. And the lab's core system rumbled online. Error. Unauthorized access. Trait deviation detected. Warning. Containment breach recorded. Null class activity detected in wild circuit. Requesting response. Response granted. I looked at Lyra. That sounds bad, doesn't it? She was already drawing her weapons. Something's waking up. The floor panels cracked. A shape rose from the back wall, buried in stasis gel. Half machine. Half armored. And absolutely not human anymore. Prototype unit. Null. Echo 01. Status. Dormant recovery. Threat level. Unknown. Sync detected. Ray Arcrite. Fusion trade overlap. 42%. Target priority. Maximum. And that's when I realized. This lab wasn't a message. It was a lock. And I just kicked the door open. If you've never seen a null class unit power on, let me explain how it feels. Like the world holds its breath. And then chokes on it. The stasis gel around the prototype evaporated. No sound. No steam. Just gone. What stepped forward wasn't a person. It was a blueprint the system rejected and then tried to erase. Twice. Its armor looked half-scarred, half-grown. like fusion residue had eaten through it and replaced it. Black filament ran through every joint, twitching with every move. Where its eyes should be, twin rings of rotating data script. Not red, not blue, just blank. Entity, null, echo 01. Origin, Project Talon Reef. Class, null. System binding, removed. Fusion capacity, unlimited. Threat evaluation, catastrophic. Veil seal level 1 triggered, asterisk. It stepped into the chamber and didn't draw a weapon. It became one. Its right arm collapsed inward, then unfolded into a spike blade laced with mana scars. Its left arm cracked, folding open into a cannon coil, humming with suppressed heat. I stepped forward. Lyra grabbed my shoulder. You can't win this alone. I don't plan to, but I do plan to try. Slot shift activated. Fusion, Riftburn Injector Core, plus Hook Edge Blade. Result, Injector Fong V2, Tier B ***. Passive, Echo Lace Strikes apply stagger, and disrupt fusion layering for 3 seconds. Phase bind, Spiral Feint, rank, stored. I lunged. So did it. We clashed in a flurry of sound and static. My blade ripped across its chest, parting armor, barely, before the cannon arm blasted a cone of mana distortion that nearly shredded my shielding. Warning, direct system interference detected. Effect, minor trait, desync. Adaptive sync delay, 2 seconds asterisk. Even when it missed, it rewrote things. Lyra, I shouted. Mimic its posture. Lock it down. She blurred behind it, copying its pivot pattern, trying to force a clash of tempo. It worked once. Then its body glitched. Not teleported. Not dodged. Skipped. Like a frame dropped in real life. It reappeared on my left flank and hammered me into the floor. Paint at first. Then the error message. Phase bind desynced. Adaptive trait error. Suggested fix. Reboot fusion core. Penalty. All current fusions dropped for 10 seconds. I gritted my teeth. 10 seconds was forever in a fight like this. Can't rely on you anymore, huh? I muttered. So I didn't. I fought dirty. Scrapper's traps pulled from my belt. Flash-fused fragments of sharpened mana glass. I dove under its next lunge and punched a fusion node directly into its exposed joint, triggering a point-blank burst coil. Unstable detonation applied. 4.2s weapon jam. Lyra moved like lightning. Arms switching from blade mimic to chain wrap form, locking its legs for just long enough. I switched to fallback gear. An old grip. A burned-out edge. Rin called it useless. I called it my first win. I slotted it, and it lit up. Emergency fusion activated. Adaptive memory core engaged. Fusion, old hilt plus echo residue plus phase bind trace. Result, blade collar prototype, tier B+. Passive, stabilizes one system error on contact. Bonus, plus 10% fusion efficiency for 15s asterisk. I charged. Not elegant. Not perfect. Just me. The prototype raised its cannon. I struck first. Echo protocol interference neutralized. Phase bind reestablished. Reactive phase bind. Echo loop captured. Null cut tier 1 asterisk. The system flickered. And for 1 second, just one, the prototype paused. Like it saw me. Like it recognized something. Then stepped back. Folded its arms in. And collapsed. Echo 01 deactivated. Memory cycle complete. Trial passed. Asterisk. I dropped to one knee, gasping. My system pinged again. Blade collar class evolution path. Stabilized. Branch progress. 41%. Bonus skill unlocked. Fusion sync lock. Rank F. Note. You're walking the same path he did. Just don't run out of rope. Asterisk. I looked up. The stasis pod behind the unit opened again, revealing nothing. No core. No data. Just a phrase, burned into the wall behind it. Ray Arkwright. Inheritor flag. Marked. Lyra walked over quiet. That thing wasn't just a failed prototype, she said. No, I whispered. It was a predecessor. The Veil had rules. Unspoken ones. Like, don't draw attention. Don't trigger system-level echoes. And definitely don't come back from the wild circuit with an inheritor tag burned into your status screen. Too bad I was never great with rules. Status update. Ray Arkwright. Class. Adaptive blade collar. Level 10. Trait. Equipment fusion. Freeform. Branch progress. 41%. Inheritor protocol. Marked. System note. Lineage acknowledged. Monitoring increased. Visibility. Elevated. Access level locked. Tier red. The worst part? I didn't even know what lineage meant in this context. Because last I checked, I was a no-name orphan from the Edge District with a junk blade and a grudge. Not the chosen heir to a lost class of reality-breaking fusion warriors. The moment Lyra and I returned to Vale HQ, they pulled us into a briefing chamber. For instructors, 2 projection scrolls, 1 very sharp look from Vel. You lit up 3 separate detection wards across 5 sectors, she said, tossing a crystal across the table, and triggered an emergency sync alert on a protocol we thought didn't exist anymore. I stared at the projection. It showed me, back in the lab, facing null, Echo 01. But the fight was distorted, like the system was trying to erase it in real time. You shouldn't be alive, one of the instructors muttered. I grinned. People keep saying that. Vel leaned forward. You're not just a blade caller anymore, Ray. You're part of a pattern. I frowned. What kind of pattern? A living chain. She tapped her scroll, activating a map of the wild circuit. 12 red marks lit up across the ruins. Each of these points once held a lab like the one you found. Each one tested variations of the class system, and each one was erased after the Null Rebellion. Pause. Except now, one of them recognized you. That's when the second notification hit. Incoming message. Source. Unknown network. Sender. The Spireless. Subject. You've been seen. Message. We watched you fight the Echo. You carry the flaw. That makes you family, or firewood. If you want answers, come to the Dead Spire. Alone. No veil interference. You'll know the door. Asterisk. Vel cursed softly as she read it. The Spireless, she said. Off-map faction. Anti-guild. Anti-system. Believed to be remnants of the original Null-class network. Lyra crossed her arms. And they want him. Of course they do, Vel said. He broke the seal. They left me with one choice. Ignore the message and play along with the Veil's plan, slowly unlocking the blade caller path under watchful eyes. Or go off script and meet the people who might actually understand what I'd become, even if they plan to use, test, or kill me. Naturally, I picked option 3. That night, I stood outside the dorm sector, looking toward the broken skyline. The Dead Spire was the tallest collapsed tower in the wild circuit, a symbol of the old class wars. Now it was just ruins. Until now. I opened my scroll, stared at the message again, then activated my gear. Adaptive blade collar loadout. 3 fusion triggers. 1 emergency overclock shard. And a boot knife with more personality than some classmates. Destination, the Dead Spire. Entry phrase, unknown. Outcome, uncertain. System status, monitoring. I smiled. Let them watch. Because if I was going to be an inheritor, I'd do it my way. The Dead Spire didn't look like a fortress, more like a snapped-off pillar of obsidian jutting from the ground like a broken tooth, half buried in mana fog, crawling with static, and radiating that same, you should turn back now, vibe as every trap dungeon I'd ever survived. So of course I walked in. The entry point wasn't a door. It was a choice. A system prompt appeared before I even touched the stone. Fusion signature recognized. Adaptive blade collar. Ray Arkwright. Lineage code. Unknown. Echo class detected. Confirm entry to free zone territory. The Spireless network. Confirm. Yes/no. The system paused on no, like it really wanted me to pick it. So I didn't. Yes. Inside, there were no hallways. No guards. Just stairs descending into a space that shouldn't have existed. Gravity bent sideways for half a step. The walls flickered with memories. Like I was walking through a circuit, not a place. And then, I arrived. The room wasn't big. 1 platform. 7 figures. 6 of them stood in silence, their faces hidden behind fractured masks, each fused to remnants of broken class crests. Warrior, rogue, tamer, cleric, mage, and duelist. But the one in front, she didn't wear a mask. She wore a scarred cloak, fusion band stripped bare. Her eyes shimmered with static where pupils should be. You're the one they called Arkwright, she said. You're the one who triggered the Echo. I nodded. That's me. And you are. I am Chev. Null type. Original general, first to survive the sink burn. First to live without a class. Her voice was quiet. Not cold. Not angry. Just tired. You're marked now, Chev continued. And the moment you walked in here, you became a variable too dangerous for the system to ignore. One of the masked figures spoke, filtered and sharp. The inheritor protocol was never meant to be passed. Another step forward, blade glowing with unstable light. We've seen your path. It splits too many ways. Too much choice. Too much control. I raised an eyebrow. So what? You want me to give it up? Chev didn't flinch. No, she said. We want to test it. Combat simulation initiated. Opponent, Chev. Title, Null Walker. Class, expunged. Fight type, sync trial. Objective, survive. Or evolve, asterisk. I barely had time to load a fusion set before Chev moved. She didn't blink. Didn't charge. She flickered. Her body skipping reality like a corrupted frame. I felt the blow before I saw it. Blocked with a last-second slot shift. Fusion. Hookblade plus impact rod equals tier C. Reverb fawn. Passive. Pulse back on guard hit. 5% knockback. Our weapons clashed, and the feedback rebounded through me instead of her. She'd reversed the sync. Null style. I rolled. Shifted again. Tried to phase bind her strike pattern. Phase bind error. No class signature detected. Unable to predict style. Target classified. Free-form echo. Of course, I muttered. She fights like me. If I lost everything else. 10 seconds in, I was bleeding from 3 places and burning through stamina like I was drinking lava. Chev didn't slow, but she didn't kill. Not yet. She was watching. And then, something changed. She stepped back. Reset her stance. You keep adapting, she said. That's the whole point. No, she said. That's not what makes you different. She raised a hand. This is... She flicked a spark of unstable mana at me. And my trait, on instinct, devoured it. Not absorbed. Not resisted. Claimed. The room froze. So did the spireless. Trait response. Echo consumption triggered. Fusion trait evolution path shifted plus 2%. Note. Echo line acceptance confirmed. Asterisk. Chev exhaled. Soft. Satisfied. Congratulations, she said. You passed. Trial complete. Spireless acknowledgement granted. New status. Observer level increased. Hidden path access gained. Memory fragment received. Null alpha. Origin, asterisk. They didn't cheer. They didn't clap. They just nodded. One by one, the mass spiralists turned and vanished, leaving only Chev. You're not null, she said. But you're not just Blade Caller either. She handed me a shard. This will show you what came before. But be warned, history isn't clean. In a moment you know what they tried to erase. She met my eyes. You'll have to choose who to betray. I left the dead spire before sunrise. Message alerts already waited for me. One from the Veil. One from Kira. And one from someone I'd never heard of. Sender. Administrator Oathlock. Tier 0 override. Message. We need to speak. Before you go any further. I always assumed the system was a background a tool, a script, something made by people, patched by magic, and updated once every few years by a board council in polished robes. I didn't know it could summon you. And I definitely didn't know it could send a message like this. Come alone. No weapons. No fuse gear. No hidden triggers. I'll know. Administrator Oathlock. Just a name. And a location. The Hollow Chamber. Sector 0. Beneath the archive. Which didn't exist. Officially. The journey down was a descent through layers of magic the system didn't want to acknowledge. Wards that flickered at my touch. Corridors that hadn't been walked in a decade. Old, defunct runes on the walls that still whispered when I passed. Finally, a circular door. Black metal. Smooth. It opened without a sound. The hollow chamber was quiet. No screens. No system prompts. No floating windows. Just a stone room and one man standing in its center. Middle-aged. Gray coat. Long gloves. Eyes that shimmered like a console screen mid-boot. And behind him, etched into the wall, was a symbol I'd seen only once before. A gear inside a spiral. The symbol of null. You're Ray Arkwright, he said. Not a question. You've bypassed natural evolution. Triggered an unauthorized trade unlock. Faced a prototype. Engaged with the spireless. Survive. He walked forward, hands folded behind his back. I'm Administrator Othlock. Tier 0. I oversee system exceptions. I blinked. You mean glitches? I mean people like you. He gestured toward the far wall, and it lit up with projected logs. My first dungeon fight. My first fusion. The trial where I broke the seal. The wild circuit skirmish. Null. Echo 01's collapse. The spireless duel. All recorded. All logged. All watched. We don't create classes, he said. We observe them. Maintain them. Contain them. But every few generations, the system fails. It meets someone it can't contain. Someone whose evolution path splinters before we can graft it to a tree. He looked at me. You're a splinter, Arkwright. I stepped back. I didn't ask for that. No one does, he said. But you accepted it. And now you're outpacing the algorithms we use to keep the world stable. He raised a hand, and the room responded. My status screen shut down. Not dimmed, shut down. I couldn't open inventory. I couldn't slot shift. My fusion core flickered. I can disable you with a gesture, he said softly. And yet, I haven't. The silence stretched. I clenched my fists. Why bring me here? He tapped a finger against the wall, and a second projection appeared. This one wasn't of me. It was of someone else. A name I'd only seen in fragments and corrupted logs. Talon Reef. Class null. Status. Terminated, disputed. Note. Inheritor tag transferred, confirmed. Tag recipient. Ray Arkwright. My breath caught. Talon wasn't just a null survivor. He was the first. And somehow, I'd inherited his path. Othlock's voice was quiet. There's a choice. You can continue. Break past level 20. Face your first evolution rift. And we will all see what happens when an adaptive blade caller fuses outside the system's reach. He stepped forward. Or, you can accept a reclassification. System purge. Trait lock. Memory modification. You return to a controlled class. Live. Train. Rise slowly. Peacefully. I stared at him. He meant it. He wasn't threatening me. He was offering me a way out. A cage. Wrapped in comfort. I closed my eyes. Felt my trait hum my bones. Felt the pulse of every fusion I'd ever built from scrap and desperation. And I smiled. I don't break things just to be different, I said. I break them because what comes after is better. Othlock didn't react. He just sighed. Then I suggest you get stronger. Fast. System reconnected. Status restored. Class monitoring. Elevated. Danger level orange. He turned away and said one last thing. The system won't be the one to kill you. The next inheritor will. The rift wasn't supposed to open for another month. That's what the official guild board said. That's what the Veil's mission roster claimed. That's what the Adventurers Guild told the public. But I'd seen the real feed. And the moment I left the hollow chamber, the notification hit. Unstable rift detected. Zone. Rift point Black Delta. Evolution rift classification. Incomplete. Survival rate. 0%. Entry slots remaining. 1. Participant confirmed. Kira. Asterisk. Note. She went in alone. You're the last entry. So yeah. Guess I'm going in. Lyra intercepted me at the gates. You know this is a bad idea, she said. That's the only kind I have, I muttered. Her eyes were sharp. But there was something else there, too. Worry. Maybe even something deeper. You're still bleeding from the last fight, she said. I held up a bandaged wrist. That's what tape is for. You're reckless. I'm prepared. You're going in for Kira, aren't you? I hesitated, then nodded. She might know what happens when inheritors clash. Lyra frowned. And if she doesn't want to talk? I grinned. Then we'll speak with blades. The rift sat in the ruins of a collapsed guild tower. Burnt-out stone. Broken seals. An entire section of the map grayed out on the system overlay. The air shimmered like heat over a broken forge. And then it pulsed. Rift Black Delta. Opening. Entry confirmed. Ray Arkwright. Warning. Class evolution approaching threshold. Progress. 96%. Notice. Evolution Rift will force class upgrade at 100% within Rift parameters. Asterisk. Do you accept? Yes. The world inverted. Sound vanished. Color twisted. And suddenly I stood on a shattered bridge, suspended over a void of fractured stars. Floating shards of stone hovered in the distance, locked in gravitational pulses. A fractured city drifted above me. Welcome to Evolution Rift. Black Delta. Structure. Broken timeline. Rules. System instability. Fusion traits unchecked. Warning. You will not leave the same. Asterisk. At the far edge of the bridge, standing perfectly still, Kira. Fusion cores orbiting her back like moons. Eyes glowing with flickering script. She didn't speak, just raised a hand. Dual request. Initiated. Evolution clash. Inheritor versus inheritor. Stakes. Class path override. Outcome will influence adaptive tree. Asterisk. I drew my blade and smiled. Hey, Kira. Hey, Arkwright. You come here often? She smirked. Only when I'm about to rewrite fate. Then her fusion cores snapped into position, and the rift trembled. Slot shift activated. Fusion. Echo injector plus core burn fawn. Result. Spinal lance. Tier B dash asterisk. Phase bind loaded. Reverse echo kick. Rank E. Bonus trigger. Unstable rift feedback active. Trait gains doubled on clash. I charged. She answered with a mirrored form. My own style reflected back at me, warped by her triple core layout. Sparks flew. Fangs clashed. Echoes screamed. And the rift began feeding on us both. EXP gained. Plus 1.1%. Level 1920. Class evolution triggered. Processing path asterisk. The system went dark. And then it whispered. Choose. Or let the rift choose for you. Everything was breaking. The bridge beneath us cracked with each step. Floating platforms shifting like tectonic plates across an ocean of stars. Gravity was a suggestion. Physics? Optional. And above it all, the system, normally so clinical, so cold, was screaming. Emergency evolution triggered. Dual inheritor protocol. Participants. Ray Arkwright, Kira. Unknown core ID. Clash tree conflict. Adaptive blade collar versus cascade core variant. Environment. Rift response. Phase mirror mode. Warning. Class sync unstable. Collision in progress. Asterisk. Translation. Our evolutions were happening at the same time, in the same space, and the rift didn't like it. So it decided to merge the process. Kira and I stood on opposite ends of a fractured arena, suspended midair, platforms circling us like predatory rings. She looked different now. Her 3 fusion cores floated behind her shoulders, forming a glowing delta pattern, and the air shimmered around her like she was constantly editing reality, one frame at a time. I felt my trait humming in my chest. Overclocked, unstable, alive. The system pinged again. Class evolution. Ray Arkwright. Candidate pathways. 1. Echo Strider. Controls the battlefield using delayed fusion effects, leaving trap ghosts that explode on triggers. 2. Blade Collar Prime. Converts stored fusion blueprints into autonomous weapons. Can deploy up to 2 spectral weapons in combat. 3. Overedge Architect. Directly manipulates the terrain using fused components. Builds weaponized structures mid-combat. Each option fell, right? But only one pulsed in time with my heartbeat. Across from me, Kira locked eyes. Choose fast, Ray, she called. Because mine's already sinking. The rift trembled. Cascade core, evolution initiated. Result. Echo Frame Diver, Tier, Advanced Hybrid asterisk. Passive. Mimics not only weapons, but fighting patterns, rewriting movement trees in real time. Trait alert. Style sync. 72% match detected with Ray Arkwright. Assimilation potential unlocked. Asterisk. She could start copying me. Not just my moves. My evolution. Nope. Not happening. Class evolution path selected. Blade Collar Prime. Upgrade confirmed. Fusion slot capacity +1. Passive gained. Spectral Arsenal. Summon a fusion memory weapon for 10 seconds. 2 max. Skill gained. Memory bind. Bind stored phase binds into autonomous strikes. My blade glowed. Not with heat or magic. With presence. Like I was standing at the center of a storm I'd built piece by piece. And now it was finally spinning on its own. Kira launched first. Flickered across 3 platforms and came down with a mirrored copy of my injector Fong. But faster. Cleaner. Warning. Style assimilation. 73% sync. Projected outcome. Ray Arkwright outpaced in 24 seconds. Unless. I gave her something she couldn't copy. Spectral Arsenal, activated. Memory loaded. Spiral Hook Blade V2. Status, autonomous. Duration, tens. A ghostly weapon formed in the air beside me, then surged forward like a wolf unleashed. Kira blinked, then dodged, right into my trap. Memory bind, stored combo, null kick plus snap coil upper, released via phase bind link. She caught the first hit, but the second launched her into the air, straight into my waiting blade. Clang. Echo versus Echo. 2 blades. 2 fusions. 1 rift, screaming for a victor. The air rippled. The rift responded. Class collision reached. 100%. System conflict detected. Rift convergence activated. Time limit. 60 seconds asterisk. Our weapons locked again, flickering with overloaded light. You learning yet? I hissed. She grinned. I'm rewriting the book. Then everything exploded. The rift closed in, dragging the floating platforms together. Systems flickered, and a voice, old, cracked, system deep, echoed through the collapsing sky. Only one path stabilizes. Choose your final imprint. Leave the other behind. Kira's eyes widened. So that's it. One of us gets rewritten, or both of us break. I took a breath and stepped forward. Final class imprint. Locked. Blade Caller Prime. Stabilized. Secondary path. Echo Strider. Fragment stored as trait ghost asterisk. The system pulsed. Kira screamed. Her form fracturing, data flaring, arms shaking. Then her body snapped back together. The rift calmed. And in the silence, we stood there. Both changed. Both alive. Rift complete. Ray Arkwright. Level 20. Class. Blade Caller Prime. Confirmed. Trait Sync. Adaptive Fusion. Stabilized Hybrid. System Tag. Inheritor Tier 2. Memory Slot Unlocked. 2. Spectral Arsenal Ready. Kira. Evolution Incomplete. Trait Ghost Detected. Sync Lock. 86%. Warning. Personality Fragmentation. Stabilization in progress. She dropped to one knee, breathing hard. You win, she muttered. I offered a hand. No, I said. We both survived. She took it. When the rift spat us back out, it didn't feel like a return. It felt like waking up somewhere else entirely. The sky was wrong, bluer, sharper, like someone had adjusted the saturation settings of reality itself. System pings fell slower. Mana tasted like metal. Even the ground buzzed. Re-entry dumped us at the outskirts of the academy. Kira hit the dirt, coughing static. I stumbled, blade still humming from the fusion burn. We were both alive, but something had come back with us. World status. Shift detected. Cause. Unknown. Alert. Tier 0 administrative oversight. Offline. Veil command response. Delayed. Emergency protocol. Factions in motion. I blinked. The administrator's gone. Kira sat up, face pale, eyes wide. No, he didn't leave. She pointed at her scroll. He was overwritten. The moment we crossed into city bounds, we felt it. Tension. Silence. Energy like a low-grade storm. Every other person in uniform looked like they were waiting for an alarm that hadn't rung yet. A Veil scout found us within minutes. Gray coat. Breathless. Eyes wild. Arkwright. He panted, handing over a scroll. This is not a drill. I opened it and felt my pulse stop. Urgent Veil dispatch. Level red. Target. Arkwright Ray. Status. Returned from Evolution Rift. New objective. Immediate regroup. Additional notice. Invul, Lyra. Missing. Last pinged location. Dungeon Sector 7. Tag. Origin class. Locked. Accompanied by. Unknown fusion user. Last message received. Don't follow. If I fail, he opens it. I crushed the scroll in my hand. Lyra's gone. Kira didn't blink. She just stood. Where? Sector 7. Origin locked dungeon. She whistled low. They found it. I narrow my eyes. Found what? She looked at me carefully. The first dungeon. The one that predates the system. The reason classes exist. The Origin dungeon had been a rumor. An ancient gate hidden under the city. Said to be sealed by something older than any magic we understand. Kept locked by a class law that no one could rewrite. Until now. If Lyra was pulled into it, it meant someone found the key. And if she went willingly, it meant she was trying to stop what came next. Kira glanced sideways at me. You ready to break another rule? I nodded. I opened my scroll. Loaded my new class. Class, Blade Caller Prime. Passive, Spectral Arsenal. Phase bind slots, 2. Status, Stable. Trait, Adaptive Fusion. Hybrid, Inheritor Tier 2. Sync progress, 47%. And for the first time, I unlocked my spectral loadout grid. 2 glowing blades hovered at my side. One from my earliest fight. One copied from Kira's echo pattern. Ghosts of battles past. But still sharp. Still mine. We turned towards Sector 7. Toward the place even the veil wouldn't go. Objective added. Rescue Lyra. Intercept, Origin unlock. Identifying new inheritor threat. I smiled without humor. All right, world. You took your shot. Now it's my turn. Sector 7 wasn't on any modern map. Even the Veil's tactical scrolls listed it as a collapsed zone. Non-viable, non-recognized, mana dead. That was a lie. A bad one. Because the moment we crossed the ridge. Warning. Fusion signature surge detected. Grade A+. Source. Classless rift. Origin class dungeon. Status. Partially unsealed. Sync level. Variable. Threat level. Unquantifiable. The system panicked. The landscape had changed. The cracked stone of the outer ruins had been warped. Overgrown with glowing root structures made of crystallized mana. Floating tiles shimmered like half-fused spell scrolls. The ground beneath our boots buzzed. And every few seconds, we heard something speak in the distance. Not a voice. A memory. Level up, little echo. Or die unfinished. I glanced at Kira. She didn't blink. This place is alive, she said. No, I muttered. It's remembering. The gate stood at the center of a crater. Once sealed, now split open. Just enough for a human to walk through. The dungeon's surface pulsed like a heartbeat. Its entrance formed a black stone wrapped in mana veins that didn't follow any known rune structure. A name flickered across the threshold. Dungeon, Origin class, the first path. Warning, class law distortion detected. Entry authorized. Ray Arkwright, Inheritor Protocol, Tier 2. Additional signature, Invul, Lyra, status, inside. Accompanied by unknown entity, trait, unknown signature, founder fragment, asterisk. Founder fragment? I felt my grip tighten on my blade. Someone's trying to reboot the system. Kira stepped forward. Someone's trying to replace it. We entered the gate. No light, no load screen, just pressure, like the world was pushing back. Not to stop us, but to warn us. Inside, the walls were smooth and seamless. Obsidian shaped by intention, not time. A soft light illuminated the space as our scrolls failed. System access denied. Interface blocked by Origin. Trait autonomy engaged. Sync level. Personal memory only. My fusion core hummed, and then the floor opened. We fell. Not far, but fast, and landed in a chamber lit by hovering glyphs. Each one glowing with a different class symbol. Some familiar, some impossible. One rotated toward me. Warrior, Mage, Duelist, Tamer, Blade Caller. No, unknown. The last one didn't have a symbol. It had a mirror, and in it, I saw myself, but older, scarred, and wielding a weapon I hadn't built yet. Then the voice came. Soft, deep, not human. Welcome back, Ray Arkwright. You're late. The world ended once. We built this place so it could begin again. Now choose your entrance. One glyph blinked to life beneath my feet, then another beneath Kira, then a third, glowing faint blue, and on it a name, Lyra. Kira and I looked at each other, then nodded. She stepped on her mark. I stepped onto mine. And Lyra's? It sank. Path selected. Trial of classless unity. Initiating Sector 1. Echo Genesis. Participants. Ray Arkwright, Kira. Unknown entity. In transit. Warning. Only those who abandon class may reach the core. Note. Fusion will become memory. Memory will become weapon. Begin. The floor dissolved. The world inverted. And we were falling again. But this time, into the origin of all things. Falling didn't feel like falling. It felt like being peeled apart. Piece by piece, layer by layer. Like the system was stripping away every stat, every passive, every convenient classification I'd earned so far. And then, welcome to Echo Genesis. Trait access. Locked. Skills locked. Equipment. Nullified. Only memory remains. And that's when I hit the ground. Not a hard slam. More like landing on something soft. Familiar. The field beneath me stretched wide. Cracked dirt. Overgrown grass. A broken fence in the distance. It took a second to recognize it. Then another to believe it. It was the training yard from the orphanage. From back when I was a kid. Back when I didn't have stats. Just a stick. And a stupid dream. Why here? I muttered. Then the wind shifted. And he stepped out from the edge of the memory. Same black hair. Same height. Same stupid boots I wore when I was 12. But no light in his eyes. Just focus. Just pain. Trial initiated. Echo Genesis, Stage 1. Self-origin. Objective. Defeat the fusion echo of your younger self. Fusion allowed. Memory-based only. Warning. Only what you remember can be summoned. Asterisk. He charged. And I moved. He was fast. Not because he was stronger, but because I'd forgotten how simple I used to fight. Pure instinct. Rage. Desperation. No timing. No system overlays. Just swing until it works. My arm barely got the block up in time. He hit like a wild animal. I rolled, grabbed a stick from the dirt, and the system flared. Fusion triggered. Memory. Broken chair leg plus leather grip. Result. Scrapblade version 0.1. Effect. +1 to balance. Weapon type. Improvised. Emotional tag. Hope. Asterisk. The blade formed in my hand, just like I remembered building it the first time, back in the forge basement when Rin wasn't looking. It felt real. It was real. And when I blocked the next hit, it held. I struck back. He blocked with a metal pipe, the one I'd used in my first street fight. Memory fusion trigger. Gutter pipe plus stolen wire wrap. Result. Rattlebat prototype. Passive. 5% stun chance from rattling echo. I smirked. Even my memories cheat. He didn't respond. Just spun, jumped, and slammed me in the ribs. My vision blurred. But I grinned anyway. Because now I remember the pain. And the lesson. Memory recovered. Counterbind, block, twist, sweep. Stored in phase bind slot 1. I rose. Let him come again. This time, I didn't block. I absorbed the strike on the flat. Twisted his arm. Swept the leg. Then drove the scrap blade into the dirt beside his neck. The younger me stopped. Frozen. Then smiled. And dissolved into glowing light. Trial passed. Echo Genesis Stage 1 complete. Trait access restored. Memory weapons unlocked. Scrapblade version 0.1. Rattlebat prototype. Emotional echo. Hope plus fear. Spectral arsenal expanded. +1 memory slot. The field faded. The world reshaped. I landed in the next chamber. More like a shard of a broken city, floating in a void. Kira was already there, breathing hard, 2 memory blades at her side. Yours too? I asked. She nodded. Me versus me. Did you win? She exhaled, still deciding. A new path opened in front of us, lit by flickering lights shaped like Lyra's silhouette. Next path, Echo Genesis, Stage 2. The memory of someone you failed. Warning. Emotional disruption expected. System adaptability test in progress. I felt my heart twist, because I already knew who I was about to see, and I wasn't sure I could raise a blade against her. The moment the door to Stage 2 opened, I knew who I was going to see, not because the system told me, but because the guild had never really left. The space looked like a warped recreation of the orphanage dining hall, long before it was renovated. Flickering lights hung crooked over cracked tables. Wooden floors stained with years of scuffed boots and spilled stew. But the center of the room? Clear. Waiting. And in it stood Mira. Brown-haired, tied in a ribbon she'd made from an old curtain. Eyes too big for someone who'd seen so much. She wasn't a fighter. Never had been. She'd been my first little sister figure. And she died in a street raid 2 years ago, when I was too weak to stop it. I hadn't seen her face since the funeral. Now, she stood in front of me, smiling. Trial initiated. Echo Genesis. Stage 2. Target. The one you couldn't save. Identity. Mira. Classless civilian. Memory echo. Asterisk. Combat form. What you feared she'd become. Trait projection. Adaptive instinct. Unstable. Fusion type. Emotion-bound echo weapon. Tier C. Warning. She fights with what she thinks you taught her. Asterisk. She stepped forward. and her arm shifted, twisted, became a blade, not crafted, but imagined, fused together from what she thought I was. A long, jagged sword made from a bench-air leg, a snapped fork, and a belief that I could win anything. Mira, I breathed. She tilted her head. You left, she said softly. She struck first. Wild, fast, clumsy, but emotional. An emotion in this place was a weapon. I blocked with my recovered scrap blade, barely holding the force. Passive triggered, guilt bind. Each successful hit lowers defense by 2%. Status, sync error risk. Hesitation detected. My system was screaming at me to counter, to finish it. But how do you swing at someone you'd already failed once? You promised, she whispered, slashing again. You said we'd get out. You said I'd be safe. Block. Slide. My feet skidded on the dusty floor. I tried. Trying didn't stop them. Another swing. This one caught my shoulder. Pain burned, but not from the hit. From the memory. Phase bind triggered. Memory. Myra's last day. Stored. Passive. Never leave her behind. Status. Bound. Emotional lock. I dropped to a knee. She raised the blade again. And I saw it. The crack. The fear behind her fury. Because this wasn't Mira. It was what she might have become if she tried to fight like me. I didn't fail her by not teaching her enough. I failed by letting her believe she had to be like me to survive. I rose. Switched grips. Dropped the blade entirely. The system flared. Fusion canceled. Trait shift. Memory override. Acceptance path. Unlocking. Echo fused empathy blade. Tier C+. Weapon formed. Valblade. Myra's Echo. Passive. Plus 25% resistance to emotional trigger passives. Bonus. Immune to guilt bind. Asterisk. The blade formed in my hand. Not jagged. Not broken. Just gentle. I stepped forward and parried her next swing. Not to win. To hold her. To let her fall into my arms as her echo flickered. It wasn't your job to fight, I whispered. It was mine to carry you. She stopped, then smiled again, and her memory dissolved in a soft light. Trial passed. Echo Genesis Stage 2 complete. Emotional lock released. Memory weapon acquired. Valblade. Myra's Echo. Trait bonus. Emotional sync threshold increased. Phase bind slot expanded. Max 3. New fusion tag unlocked. Empathic lineage. Protect. Asterisk. The room shifted again, and I stood at the edge of a new gate. Kira waited there, quiet, her face unreadable. You saw someone too? I asked. She nodded. My brother. Alive. No. Did you beat him? No, she said. But I forgave him. We stepped into the final circle of the Genesis floor. One message waited, carved into the air like a scar. To wield origin, you must accept all paths, even the broken ones. Next stage, the one still waiting. Target, Ly Ray. My chest tightened, because this wasn't the end of a trial. This was the beginning of a rescue. The chamber didn't feel like a place. It felt like a pause between moments. Airless, soundless, waiting. And at the center, standing perfectly still, eyes closed, was Lyra. But something was wrong. Her armor shimmered with flickers of echo light. Her mimic bands were lit, but not synced. Her body stood like stone, arms loose at her side. Not bound, not hurt, just frozen, suspended inside a sphere of warp time. And floating above her, tangled in a weave of fading runes, a single phrase. She waited for you, and you let her break alone. Echo Genesis, final stage. The one still waiting. Target, Invul, Lyra, memory projection. Incomplete. Combat variant. Fractured echo form. Challenge type. Guilt-linked fusion trial. Participants. Ray Arkwright, Kira. Objective. Free her without losing yourselves. Bonus objective. Forgive each other. Asterisk. My hands clenched. This place doesn't pull punches, I muttered. Kira drew a blade made from a past I didn't recognize. She's in there, she said. But she's stuck in what she thinks we believe about her. The runes pulsed, and Lyra's echo opened her eyes. They weren't hers. Not exactly. They were filled with cold clarity, mimic energy flowing off her like a storm with nowhere to land. And then she spoke. Not aloud. Inside our heads. You didn't trust me. You call me perfect, but never let me fail. You fought like I'd break. So I did. She moved. The system shook. Lyra, echo form. Unbound counter. Weapon style, perfected mimic, variant alpha. Passive, predicts target attacks. Reacts with 1.2x speed. Bonus, deals increased damage to those with emotional ties. Asterisk. The first strike nearly took off my shoulder. Kira barely blocked the follow-up with a flicker phase blade. She's using everything she's ever copied, she shouted. And improving it. We split, circling. Lyra mirrored our movement perfectly. Her form shifted mid-motion. Spear to dagger to dual blade. Never the same twice. Every strike was what we expected of her. Every movement, a demand. You always looked down on me. Her voice rang out in my head. Pretended I wasn't broken because you needed me not to be. That's not true. I shouted back. I didn't know how to help you without making you feel smaller. Then you should have said that. She came again. I met her halfway. Spectral arsenal activated. Memory blade. Myra's echo. Phase bind. Hope over fear. Bound. I parried her mimic dagger. Let slip past my guard. Then caught her arm. Not to break her stance. To hold it. I'm sorry, I said. Eyes locked on hers. I never treated you like someone who could fall. So you never got to learn how to stand. Her blade trembled. Then, so did she. Kira stepped in then. One hand on my shoulder. Her own blade lowered. She waited for both of us, she said softly. Not just to save her, but to admit she didn't need to be perfect for us to stay. The air cracked. The mimic light shattered. And the echo collapsed. Not violently. Like a sigh. Like something exhaled. Lyra fell forward into me. Her body limp, but whole. Eyes fluttered open. Real ones. Tired. But hers. I heard everything, she murmured. I held her tighter. I meant all of it. Echo Genesis. Stage 3 complete. Memory trial cleared. Participants. Ray Arkwright, Kira Invul, Lyra. Trait reward. Emotional sync maxed. No penalty for future guild trials. Fusion bonus. Empathic link activated. Ray plus Lyra. Unlocking. Origin Dungeon Core path. Opened. The floor shifted. And, for the first time in this trial, a real door appeared. Forged of black steel and spiraling gearwork. At its center, one word burned. Origin. I looked at Lyra. Then at Kira. We go together. They both nodded. Kira smirked. You're gonna owe me so many answers. Lyra raised a brow. You'll get in line. And the three of us stepped forward. Into the place that made the system itself. The Origin Core didn't feel like a dungeon. It felt like walking into a memory too massive to contain. The door closed behind us with no sound. And in front of us, a spiral platform of floating hexagons, suspended over a starless void. Each tile glowed with old data, flickering class symbols, fusion schematics, even names. Some I recognized. Most I didn't. Warrior, Ranger, Architect, no, Mage, Blade Caller, Inheritor, Spiral Tier, Rejected, Prototype, Ray, 000.1. I stopped walking, because that last one had my name on it. Welcome to the Origin Core. Designation, World Line Root / Class Genesis Engine. Function, construct and assign evolutionary branches. Status, online fragmented. Last editor, Administrator Oathlock, terminated. Active tag, Ray Arkwright, Tier 2 Inheritor, Prime Thread. Decision request pending. Select line to reinforce. The platform pulsed, and the voice returned. Not loud, not threatening, just present. You carry too many futures. Choose one, or collapse under all of them. You may rewrite one law, one truth. Kira stepped forward, breath caught in her throat. Lyra just stared at me. Ray, the system's asking you to decide how evolution moves forward. My throat was dry. It wasn't a power-up. It wasn't a skill scroll. It was a root-level command line. And it was real. A console blinked into view ahead of me. Ancient UI. Mana-engraved script. Flickering under a single line of data. Fusion trait. Adaptive blade caller. Tag. Inheritor prime. Decision thread. Open. Available directives. Break class cap. Remove trait sync limits. Reclassify broken paths. Restore null class. Delete branch. Inheritor. Irreversible. Locked. Requires emotional sync greater than or equal to 3, asterisk. My hands trembled. Each option burned. Each was a new world waiting to happen. But that last one, it pulsed faint blue. Waiting. Kira walked to my side. This is what the spiralists wanted to find. A way to unchain growth from fear. Lyra placed her hand on my wrist. But if you choose wrong, someone will use it to build something worse. I nodded. Of course. Because power isn't good or bad. It's a blueprint. And someone always builds with it. I reached out. Selected the directive. Restore null class. Break class cap. Unlock final directive. The system pulsed. Time stopped. And in the silence, I heard a new voice. You are not the first to change the path. But you may be the first to survive it. Final directive unlocked. Classless evolution. Trait bound. Spiral echo. Forge your path by walking all others. Ray Arkwright. Status updated. Origin Walker Tier 1. Blueprint seed. Installed. World impact. Pending asterisk. The floor glowed. Tiles shifted. The whole room restructured itself into a spiraling tower of class symbols. A rising helix of options. Ray Arkwright no longer had just a class. He had access to them all, but only one at a time. Origin Walker trait unlocked. Trait effect. Allows temporary class shifting between fusion evolved types. Cooldown, variable. Memory cost, high. Bonus. Inheritor threads can now overlap. System warning. This user may destabilize global class structure. Monitoring level, maximum. I collapsed to one knee, the weight of the rewrite sinking into my bones. Kira caught me. Lyra steadied me. I didn't break it. I whispered. I opened it. The core rumbled. Doors opened on every side of the platform. The dungeon, silent until now, began to wake up. Origin dungeon status. Phase 2 activated. Fusion entities detected. System intrusion confirmed. Tag, Abyss threat incoming. Defensive lockdown failed. Prepare for combat asterisk. Lyra drew her mimic band blades. Kira grinned. Guess we woke up the neighbors. I stood. The Origin Walker trait flared around me like a second heartbeat. Good. Let them come. There wasn't a warning. There was a sound. A hum, deep and low like someone dragging chains across the bones of the world. The Origin core's floating platform shook. Class glyphs flickered, then dimmed. My trait, the one I had just rewritten into existence, flared against something cold and hungry pressing into the system's edges. System alert. Abyss thread detected. Origin location. Classification, invalid. Threat level. Apex class, / evolution reversal type. Status. Infiltrating fusion core lattice asterisk. Translation. We just torn a hole in the foundation of the class system, and something fell in. Lyra stepped in front of me, blades drawn, expression cold. Kira's coat flickered as she activated all 3 fusion cores in a single breath. Eyes locked on the breach forming at the far end of the chamber. What is that? Kira asked. I don't know, I said. And the worst part, neither did the system. The platform ahead warped, stone pulling like stretched rubber, reality twisting inward until it peeled open like a cracked shell. From the breach crawled the first Abyss entity. Not humanoid, not readable, just a mass of fused class fragments, twisted together like rejected evolution paths stitched into a living contradiction. It didn't walk. It dragged itself forward on broken limbs made of sword hilts, spell runes, beast claws, and an echo of my own class, symbol warped into something screaming. Abyss touched entity, classless reversal, / model, spiral maw. Origin, unknown. Behavior, devours class paths. Converts memory into error data. Status, hostile to all trait structures, asterisk. I took a step forward, and my scroll shut off entirely. Fusion core, disconnected. Trait, suppressed by abyssal noise. Status, unstable. You have entered a no-class zone. Asterisk. I just fixed all this. I yelled at the sky. The sky didn't answer. The maw did, with a shriek that made my ears bleed. The first attack came fast. Tentacle limbs formed of melted stat icons lashed toward Lyra. She mimicked a blink dodge perfectly, slicing through one with a clean arc. Kira followed, spinning her dual-core weapon into a charge slash that actually cut through the maw's front mass. And me? I had one thing left. My Origin Walker trait. Emergency trait override. Origin walker initiated. Class replica. Duelist. Blade path memory. Rank B. Passive. Precision flow. All dodges gain plus 15% strike accuracy. Bonus. Trait memory bound. Hope over fear. Asterisk. I blinked forward, low stance, and cut into the maw's root shoulder. It screamed again, this time projecting a glitching aura of despair that made my fusion memories flicker like half-burnt photos. Kira stumbled. Lyra gritted her teeth. I held on. Barely. Abyss effect triggered. Memory drain in progress. Target. Ray Arkwright. Memory. First dungeon win, level 5. Status. Corrupted asterisk. Not happening, I growled. Trait burn activated. Origin walker surge. Override permission, granted. Recovery protocol. Class memory, reintegration asterisk. I slammed my blade through the corrupted glyph forming in front of me, and the whole battlefield pulsed. The Origin core fought back. Origin pulse initiated. Threat. Abyss entity. Countermeasure. Spiral traits sync. Ray Arkwright. Authorized to deploy class spectrum echo asterisk. A new weapon appeared in my hand. Not crafted. Not remembered. Just called. Weapon created. Spiral echo blade. Type. Trait-bound memory construct. Effect. Deals bonus damage to abyss touch targets. Immune to fusion corruption. Duration. Until stability falls. Asterisk. I raised the blade. Looked the spiral maw in its flickering, stat-corrupted eyes. And I charged. The next 10 seconds were chaos. Blades collided with data. Abyssal limbs shattered against echo constructs. Every move I made pulled fusion memories from across my life. Lyra's training sessions, Kira's trick duels, Rin's old forge diagrams. I wasn't fighting alone. I was fighting as everyone I'd ever learned from. Because that's what the Origin Walker does. We carry paths, and we make our own. With one final strike, I drove the spiral echo blade into the maw's fractured center, and it began to unravel. Not die, just lose meaning. The system rejected it. Abyss entity expelled. Status. Temporary closure achieved. Warning. This was only a thread. A loom remains. Asterisk. Silence. Smoke. Then. Origin core stabilized. Ray Arkwright. Class tag updated. Origin Walker. Tier 1. Confirmed. New ability unlocked. Class line lock. Chain a secondary class for 3 minutes. Memory capacity expanded. +1. World Watcher status. Applied. Global alert level. Raised. Kira slumped to one knee, laughing breathlessly. Lyra leaned on me, wincing. That, she gasped, wasn't a dungeon boss. No, I said. It was a warning. Behind us, the Origin core sealed itself again. Not completely. Just enough to say, you're not done yet. And from somewhere deep in the now sleeping system, a final message reached my scroll. You opened the door. Now you'd better be strong enough to hold it. Administrator, recovered for backup. The sun looked different. Not brighter. Not warmer. Just quieter. Like the sky knew what we'd done, and was holding its breath. We emerged from the Origin dungeon as 3, but only one of us carried the burden of the rewrite. Origin Walker, Tier 1 confirmed. Ray Arkwright. Memory access expanded. Trait path, spiral sync active. Passive class fusion, enabled. Global tag applied. World Watcher. Notice, your name has entered the high threads. And that meant one thing. Everyone knew. We didn't make it 10 steps beyond the crater before the veil, sent a skiff. Not one scout. Not a squad. An armored strike carrier flanked by 2 hovering drones and a full retrieval team. At the center, Vel. Arms crossed. Expression unreadable. But her eyes said everything. You really opened it, she said. Didn't have much of a choice, I replied. No, she said. You chose that path. Pause. And now the system has to choose what to do with you. They escorted us to HQ like dignitaries. Or maybe prisoners. Hard to tell. Inside, we weren't taken to interrogation. We were taken to the core view chamber, a place used only when someone caused a world-level change. Vel activated the projector. It showed a hologram of me, standing in the Origin core, spiral echo blade raised, surrounded by glyphs that didn't exist in the current class tree. And above that, a title. Inheritor of the Spiral Path, Candidate for Weaver's seat. Kira's mouth opened, then closed. Wait, Weaver. Lyra muttered. That's not real. That's just a legend. Vel turned, slowly. Not anymore. I stared at the title. I don't even know what a Weaver is. Vel didn't blink. They were the original class binders. The ones who helped shape the system before it could collapse. Back when every adventurer still had to craft their own abilities from raw mana and theory. They created the first class lines, she continued. But the cost was too high. One by one, the Weavers vanished, erased, hunted, or corrupted by their own rewrites. She paused. None have appeared in over a century. I rubbed my eyes. So naturally, I'm up next. Vel actually smiled, thin and tired. It's always you, Arkwright. Then came the second message. This one wasn't from the Veil. It came through a private system shard, black-coated, fragmented, and delivered by hand by a mass courier who vanished before we could trace them. To the spiral-bound. The spiralists are watching. So are the Guild Kings. So are the Shardborn. But only we remember what the Weaver was meant to be. Join us at Threadpoint Hollow. Before they turn you into another system puppet. The Loomless. Kira read it over my shoulder. The Loomless. Vel went pale. Impossible. Lyra's expression turned hard. They're not supposed to exist anymore. I looked at them all. Then down at my own hand, still faintly glowing with the Origin Walker trait. What do they want? Vel said it flatly. They want to finish where the first Weavers started. Kira finished it for her. They want to rewrite the world. I stepped out of the chamber alone that night. Scroll buzzing with new alerts, messages, summons, threats. And a question no one had asked me yet. Do you want to be the Weaver? I looked up at the sky. No, I whispered. But if I don't, someone worse will. The invitation didn't come with coordinates. Just a phrase burned into my scroll screen. Find a place where no class ever rooted. Where threads fray and truths don't return. Threadpoint Hollow waits. Kira translated it within seconds. It's in the Dead Fringe. Lyra scowled. That's a cursed zone. She was right. The Dead Fringe was a stretch of land between two fractured leyline territories. No dungeons, no monsters, no mana flow, just silence. And silence is worse than screams. We left before dawn. No formal clearance. No Veil escort. Just me, Kira, and Lyra. 3 unstable classes walking straight into a place the system pretends doesn't exist. The ground changed the second we crossed into the fringe. Mana dropped. System notifications stuttered. Even the Origin Walker trait began to flicker, like the very concept of classes didn't want to survive here. Warning, system sync degrading. Local environment, static drift. Trait, unstable. Memory storage, flickering. Recommend, immediate exit. I didn't stop. Neither did they. Threadpoint Hollow wasn't a location. It was a drop. A carved-out canyon of silent stone, spiraling downward in perfect geometric circles. Dozens of shattered glyphs and broken class tablets littered the descent. Discarded ideas, forgotten archetypes. Kira muttered, "This is where they came to fail." "No," Lyra said. "This is where they came to stop pretending." At the base of the spiral, they waited. 10 of them, cloaked in patchwork robes, weapons fused from discarded cores and memories that didn't belong to them. One figure stood at the front. No mask, no face enhancement, just a woman with short, jagged white hair, and eyes like chalk drawn over shadows. "You came," she said. Her voice didn't echo. It just landed. "I'm Auron, Weaver Breaker, Spiral Splitter, last of the first thread." She walked forward and looked straight at me. No one should carry the Origin Walker trait. I didn't flinch. Too late. She smiled. "Exactly. That's why we need to talk. They didn't test me. They didn't threaten me. They invited me into a stone chamber carved from the Hollow's base. Symbols danced along the walls, drawn from failed evolutions, banned passives, erased class trials. Auron spoke like someone narrating the end of a story written backwards. We were the Loomless long before the Veil learned what a class tree even was. When evolution was a choice, not a chain. You know what they fear most? I shook my head. "That one person," she said softly, "will be able to rewrite not just themselves, but others. That one person might look at a system-bound class and say, 'This can be better,' and the world will agree." She reached in her cloak and dropped a shard on the table. It pulsed like a heartbeat, coated with raw fusion energy. I touched it, and memory poured in. A boy fusing without core. A girl wielding 4 classes at once. A shadowy guild burned to cinders for asking the wrong question. And then, class type, Weaver, prototype tier. Status, unstable. User compatibility, Ray Arkwright, matched. Effect, enables trait seeding across bonded parties. Warning, Weaver paths cannot be reversed. Asterisk. I looked up. You want me to evolve again? No. Auron said. We want you to choose who gets to evolve next. Silence. And then the walls trembled. The shard flared. And the system, outside the dungeon, outside the veil, sent a message into my scroll. Ray Arkwright. Do not accept their offer. The system cannot contain a living Weaver. We will not allow another rewrite. Administrator Core. Proxy boot v 3.01. Kira's voice was quiet. You're standing on the line, Ray. Lyra just nodded. And it's already cracking. Auron held out her hand. Decide. I reached out, grabbed the shard, and let the rewrite begin. Prototype class fragment absorbed. Weaver. Trait slot created. Thread crafting, locked. Ability gained. Seed line. Share one trait temporarily with another user. Effect. You may grant others access to memory-bound growth. Risk. Shared memory bleed. Identity fracturing possible. The chamber lit up with new glyphs. And far, far above us. Global notification. Class tree distortion detected. Location. Unknown. Trigger. Ray Arkwright. Origin Walker Tier 1 / Weaver Fragment active. Status. World watching. Auron smiled. You just told the world they're not safe anymore. I held the Weaver shard in my hand. It pulsed gently, like a second heartbeat. Or maybe a loaded question made solid. Ability unlocked. Seed line. Function. Temporarily grants a target access to one of your traits or memory-bound skills. Limit. 1 user duration. 1 hour. Shared echo risk. Medium. Trait fusion. Allowed. System status. Alert. Trait transfer violates class inheritance law. Global Watchers. 3. Administrator Proxy. Guild Archive. Veil Oversight. Asterisk. 3 major powers had already flagged me as a threat. And I hadn't even used it yet. Kira sat on a stone ledge nearby, flipping a jagged coin she swore was cursed. So, she said, you gonna test your shiny new god power, or just look dramatic about it? Lyra, standing nearby with her arms crossed, shook her head. This isn't just about power. If he shares a trait, the system registers that person as a potential Weaver host. It marks them permanently, which means, I added, they don't get to go back to being normal ever again. Kira stopped flipping the coin. Perfect, she said. Normal's overrated. Auron, the leader of the Loomless, had given me one guideline. You can't give power to someone who wants it for the wrong reason. But if you never give it all, you'll lose who you are. Classic cryptic mentor speak. But it burned a hole in my chest all the same. So I looked at the 2 people who'd follow me this far. Kira, who'd nearly killed me during our first fight. Lyra, who once tried to protect me from a future she couldn't control. Either of them could take the seed. Only one would. Seed line trial activated. Candidates. Kira, fusion class. Echo Diver, trait volatility, high. Lyra, mimic class. Soulbind variant, trait stability, high. Warning. Your choice cannot be undone. If the bond breaks, both sides fracture. Suggested fusion. Spectral Arsenal, sync advised with Kira. Emotional memory link, sync advised with Lyra. My traits split across my vision. Scenarios playing out like threads in a web. Kira blazing through enemies with chaos-fused copies of my weapons. Lyra guiding new recruits, stabilizing traits I couldn't master alone. 2 paths. 2 futures. I closed my eyes and chose. Seed line chosen. Lyra. Trait shared. Emotional sync. Valblade protocol accessed. Status. Trait bond initiated. Side effect. Emotional memory bleed. Stabilized via mutual trust asterisk. Duration. 1 hour. Sync rate. 94% asterisk. Lyra's eyes widened as the memory core wrapped around her wrist like a soft chain of light. I didn't, she started. I know, I said. That's why I chose you. She blinked hard, then nodded, and drew the Valblade. It was stronger in her hands. Cleaner. More graceful. And when she moved, sparring with the loomless to test the sync, it was like she'd been born with it. Fusion variant. Valblade Echo, Tier B+, shared. Passive. Guilt immunity, phase bind. Shared burden. Bonus. Empathic strike. Increases strength when protecting the cedar asterisk. I watched in awe as Lyra outpaced 2 loomless scouts using nothing but borrowed memory and her own relentless precision. I don't deserve this, she muttered after parrying a fusion lance. I didn't either, I said, until someone gave it to me. That's when the sky cracked. Literally. The clouds split with a roar like glass shattering inside your soul. System intervention detected. Class enforcement unit incoming. Veil code, black thread, 01. Mission, cease unauthorized class seeding. Eliminate host if resistant. ETA, 60 seconds. Kira stood beside me, cracking her knuckles. Let me guess. We don't get to talk this out. Lyra raised the glowing Valblade. Let them come. I reached into my core, called the Spiral Echo Blade, and smiled. No, we're going to show them what happens when the system watches us grow and still tries to cut us down. We barely had time to regroup before the wind shifted. Not a breeze. A pressure. Like the sky itself had noticed us. Alert. Enforcement unit. Black thread. 01 has entered your zone. Status. Trait suppression operative. Mission. Cease the weaver. Terminate the seeded. Restrictions lifted. Lethal force authorized. The world stilled. And then, it appeared. 1 second, the path through Threadpoint Hollow was empty. The next, a figure stood at the edge of the ridge, still, expressionless, and completely covered in black plate thread armor. No visible seams. No visible emotion. Just a single glowing line down its mask where the eyes should be. Its voice came through our scrolls, not the air. Ray Arkwright. Class, Origin Walker. Crime, unauthorized trait seeding. Penalty, nullification. Comply or be rewritten. I drew the Spiral Echo Blade from my back. Yeah, that's going to be a no. Lyra stepped in front of me. Valblade in hand, her expression steel. I'm the one carrying the seed. You want to race someone? You go through me first. Kira stood at my flank, fusion cores spinning at full charge. Let's see what happens when the system picks a fight with its own mistakes. Combat initiated. Enforcement level threat. Black thread. 01. Class. Reaper Line Enforcer. Threadcutter variant. Trait. Class Severance. Type. System synced. Effect. Temporarily disables enemy class passives within 10 meters. Weakness. Empathy-based traits. Sync resistance. Low. Asterisk. My scroll glitched. The trait interface began to shut down. My class panel dimmed. Spectral Arsenal. Flickering. Phase bind. Unresponsive. Warning. You are in a null zone. All class functions degraded. So I did the only thing I could. I focused on what the system couldn't shut off. My memory. Emergency trait backup. Origin Walker. Memory fusion mode. Trait recovered. Hope over fear. Bound to emotional link. Trait share active. Lyra. Sync at 92%. Forge access. Manual. Construct weapon. Asterisk. Yes. I built my blade from scratch in that moment. Memory, pain, determination, and launched myself at Black Thread 01 before it could suppress Lyra 2. The Enforcer moved like math. No hesitation. No flourish. Just efficiency. I parried. Kira blinked in from behind, her triple-core fusion lancing at its flank, shattering on impact. It didn't even turn. It just raised a hand and Kira's trait suppressed. Fusion lock for 10 seconds. Damn it, she growled, dropping to one knee. That's when Lyra moved. I'd never seen her fight like that before. Not mimicking. Not reacting. Just feeling. Each movement guided by the shared memory of my regrets and her resilience. She struck low, parried the Reaper's first blow, then redirected the second into a spin kick that landed clean. Trait clash. Valblade Echo versus Class Severance. Result. Partial deflection. Bonus effect. Empathic strike. Reinforced. Black thread. 01. Stability disrupted. 4 seconds. Asterisk. Now Ray, she shouted. I surged forward with everything I had. Memory fusion active. Custom weapon. Spiral Vow Echo Blade. Passive. Immune to severance for 5 seconds. Bonus. Trait Anchor. Prevents skill loss while connected to Seed Bearer asterisk. I drove the blade into the enforcer's side. It finally staggered. No sound. No scream. Just a ripple through the hollow as its body shimmered with static, glitching for the first time. And then, it spoke again. Adapting. Oh no. Black thread. 01. Sync update. Trait countercalibrating. Empathy link. Scanned. Status. Preparing anti-weaver directive asterisk. I stepped back, panting. We can't win this clean, I muttered. Lyra's hand tightened on her blade. Kira stood, one eye bleeding light from overload. What do we do then? I looked at the hovering system glyphs. At the trait still bound between Lyra and me. Then I made a choice. Command. Force disconnect. Seed line release. Result. Shared trait revoked. Side effect. Emotional backlash. Survived. Origin walker trait. Unlocked new node. New ability. Memory anchor. Trap a moment as a weapon. Effect. Forge a weapon from shared memory. Even after the link breaks asterisk. I seized the last second of connection between us. And froze it. Weapon formed. Recurve Echo Blade. Lyra's stand. Passive. Pierces system sync barriers. Use limit. 1 asterisk. I leapt. And cut down. The blade tore through the mask. Right through the Reaper's sync core. And the enforcer collapsed. Its armor didn't clatter. It evaporated. Black thread. 01. Neutralized. Status. Trace residue remaining. Warning. This was not the only one. Next deployment. Unknown asterisk. Silence returned. Kira dropped beside a rock and groaned. Tell me that was the last of them. Lyra looked at her hand. Empty now. And nodded. No, she said. They'll send worse. I dropped the fading echo blade. Then we'll get better. From the hollow's edge, Auron watched silently. Then whispered words I wasn't meant to hear. The spiral blooms, and the system bleeds.